You lie still in the dark, and for a moment something strange happens. You try to find yourself, not your name, not your face, not even your thoughts, just you. The awareness, the presence, the one who's listening right now. Where is it? You can feel your body against the mattress, the pull of gravity, the gentle rhythm of your breath. You can sense your heart beating faintly somewhere in the background. Experience depression. You know this body is yours, but are you the body? Then your mind flickers. A thought appears, then another. Random, scattered. Something about tomorrow, something about the past. They drift in and out like clouds. You can watch them, but they aren't you. You're the one noticing them. But that's the question, isn't it? Who's noticing? You're not seeing anything with your eyes, not in this darkness. And yet, something sees your thoughts. You're hearing this voice, but not with your ears, and still, you understand. So who is the one experiencing all of this? You might point to your brain, your head, but you've never actually seen your brain. You've never watched it work. You've never felt a single neuron fire. All you know of the world, and even of yourself, is what shows up in your experience, and yet, there you are, listening, watching, wondering. But where? Try to find it. Close your eyes and look for the you behind the thoughts, behind the feelings, behind the voice in your head. Try to find the center of this experience. You won't, because the deeper you look, the more it slips away. You can locate your heartbeat, you can identify a memory, you can describe a feeling, but you can't catch the observer. It vanishes the moment you reach for it, like a shadow that disappears when you turn to face it. And that's the paradox. The one thing that feels the most real, the part of you that seems stable, constant, always there, has no edges, no center, no home. It's just there, or rather, here, aware, but ungraspable. You might say, I'm right here, I'm me. But what exactly does that mean? Is it the body? Then why do you feel like the same you now as you did 10 years ago, even though every cell in your body has changed? Is it your mind? Then why do your beliefs, your values, your memories constantly shift? So who or what is watching this ever-changing stream? You can find experiences, sensations, thoughts, emotions, but the one experiencing them, you can't touch it, you can't see it, you can't define it. And yet, without it, none of this would exist. No colors, no words, no ideas, no you. This is what some traditions call the witness, not as a person, but as an opening, a field of awareness in which all things come and go. But here's where it gets even stranger. Some say that this witness is your truest self, that beyond the personality, beyond the story, beyond the mind, there is a still, silent presence that doesn't come and go. It just is. Others say the opposite, that this witness is a mental illusion, a byproduct of neural activity, like a cursor on a screen. It's not a thing, but a pointer, a placeholder your brain creates so you feel like there's someone in charge. Which is it? Is the witness your soul? Or is it a trick of biology? You've probably never asked yourself that. Most people haven't. But right now, in this moment, you are asking. Because deep down, you know something is off. You've spent your whole life identifying with a character, a name, a personality. But now, you're starting to see it might not be real, or at least not as solid as you believed. You've been watching your life like a movie, but maybe you're not the actor. Maybe you're not even the camera. Maybe you're the screen it all appears on. And here's the twist. The screen is empty. It's invisible. But without it, the movie wouldn't exist. That's what makes this realization so powerful, because once you stop clinging to the idea of a fixed me, once you stop trying to define the watcher, you begin to experience something deeper. Stillness, freedom, a kind of presence that doesn't need an identity to be real. And from that presence, a new kind of life can emerge. One not rooted in fear or control or ego, but in awareness itself. Not who you are, but what you are. Not the thinker, but the space in which thought arises. Not the doer, but the presence in which action happens. Not the story, but the silence underneath the story. You may not understand it yet. You may not be able to explain it. But you can feel it, even now, that strange, empty clarity. The one that watches your thoughts, feels your breath, hears these words. That's not your mind. That's you. Or rather, the you behind all ideas of you. So the next time you're lost in thought, overwhelmed by emotion, or stuck in a loop of who you think you're supposed to be, pause, drop the story, drop the mask, and just notice what remains. There's no need to label it, no need to grasp it, no need to prove it. Just rest in the fact that there is something right now that's watching, listening, being. It doesn't need a name. It doesn't need a past. It doesn't need a future. It just is. And maybe that's all it ever needed to be. Everything you've ever experienced has happened inside awareness. Think about that for a second. Not one sound, not one color, not one thought or emotion has ever existed for you outside of your awareness of it. Everything. Your body, your memories, the people you love, the stars in the sky, the ground beneath your feet, all of it has appeared within your field of knowing. So let's ask the uncomfortable question. Where, exactly, is the world? Because the truth is, you've never experienced the world directly. You've only ever experienced your awareness of the world. You've never touched an object. You've only felt a sensation. You've never seen the sun. You've only seen light interpreted by the brain. You've never heard another person's voice. You've only perceived vibrations filtered through your nervous system. In every case, without exception, your experience is happening in you, inside your consciousness, inside this mysterious, open space called awareness. So again, where is the world really? We're conditioned to believe that awareness is something inside of us, that it's a function of the brain, a byproduct of the body, a flashlight that shines outward from somewhere behind our eyes. But what if that's backwards? What if it's not awareness inside the world? What if the world is inside awareness? Because from your actual lived experience, that's how it feels. Everything you see is appearing within you. You're not standing in the world looking out. You're witnessing the entire world within your perception, not metaphorically, literally. From the time you were born, the only thing you've ever truly known is experience, and that experience always arises within awareness. It's never outside it. Try to find something, anything, that exists for you outside of awareness. You can't. Even your idea of a universe, even your concept of an external world, it's appearing in thought, in sensation, in perception, in awareness. So maybe awareness isn't something small and personal. Maybe it's not limited to a brain or a body. Maybe it's not yours. Maybe it's the ground of everything. Not something that happens inside the world, but the space in which the world happens. Can you feel the shift in that? It changes everything. Because if awareness is the core of reality, then the separation you've always believed in, the me in here and the world out there, begins to dissolve. And what remains? Just this. Just presence. Just the flowing display of experience. Rising and falling, dancing and dissolving, within the infinite openness of being. And here's where it gets even deeper. If everything you know arises within awareness, then what you call reality is inseparable from perception. There is no raw, objective world, apart from the way it appears in consciousness. The sky isn't blue. That's how your brain translates wavelengths inside awareness. The table isn't solid. That's how sensation registers density in your field of experience. The world you move through each day is not a fixed external thing. It's a projection, a rendering, a model, painted by your senses, shaped by your beliefs, filtered through your memory and held within this mysterious space of knowing. But that space, that awareness, it doesn't come and go, it doesn't age, It doesn't change with your opinion. Is the one constant behind every dream, every fear, every love story, every heartbreak. It was there when you were 5, watching the world with wonder. It's here now, seeing through older eyes, and it will be here tomorrow, witnessing whatever unfolds. It's not in the story, it's the screen on which the screen plays, and you can spend your whole life focusing on the movie, but when you turn your attention back to the screen, you find something wordless, silent, stable, free. You realize, I'm not just the character, I'm not just the emotions, the thoughts, the events. I am the awareness within which all of this appears. And the world, it's not separate from me, it's rising in me. This doesn't mean you're imagining it. It means you're not apart from it. You are inseparable from reality, because you are the field in which reality shows up. This is not philosophy, it's direct experiential truth. And when you see it clearly, suffering begins to fade, because the fear of being lost in a cold external universe dissolves. You're not lost. You're not outside of life. You are life. You are the knowing of it, the presence behind it. And that knowing, that awareness, is untouched by the content of experience. Joy may arise, grief may follow, thoughts may race, silence may return, but awareness doesn't flinch, it doesn't push or pull, it simply sees. And in that seeing, you rediscover peace, not because the world is perfect, but because you've stopped believing you're separate from it. You've stopped chasing what's out there. You've come home to the only place you've ever truly been. Here, inside awareness, and in that recognition, everything changes. You don't need to escape the moment. You don't need to fix what's unfolding. You simply witness it, with presence, with openness, with love. Because you are not a thing inside the world trying to survive. You are awareness itself, dreaming the world into being. And when that truth fully lands not just in your mind but in your being, you stop searching for something more. Because you realize, this is it. This awareness, this now, this quiet miracle, it's everything you were looking for. And you are never apart from it, not for a single breath, because you realize, this is it, this awareness, this now, this quiet miracle. It's everything you were looking for, and you were never apart from it, not for a single breath, even when you felt lost, even when you doubted your path, even in your deepest confusion. Awareness remained, still, patient, unmoved. It held you when you didn't even know it was there, and now you're ready to remember, not through more thought, but through being. So let this be the beginning not of seeking, but of seeing. Because the truth is simple, awareness is not something you find, it's what's always been watching. You've always assumed there's a you inside your head, a center, a core, something solid behind your eyes watching it all unfold. But have you ever tried to find it? Not just believed in it, but looked directly for it. You sit in silence. You close your eyes. You turn your attention inward, and you start to search. Who's in there? Who's doing the thinking? Who's hearing the thoughts, feeling the emotions, making the decisions? At first, the mind jumps in. It's me, it says. Obviously. I'm right here. But where exactly? Where is this me? Is it behind the eyes? In the head? In the chest? So you look closer, you try to locate it, not with belief, but with pure perception. And what do you find? Not a core, not a center, not a fixed point you can call me. What you find is space, sensations, sounds, a swirl of thoughts and feelings rising and falling like waves, but nothing stable, nothing permanent, nothing solid you can grab onto and say, this is me, this is the one who's in control. Because the more you look, the more it disappears. The more you reach for the self behind the thoughts, the more it slips through your fingers, like chasing a shadow in the fog. This isn't spiritual poetry, this is direct experience. You can try it right now. Who is hearing these words? Who is watching this moment unfold? It's not the ears, not the eyes, not the brain. There's no little person sitting inside your skull pulling levers, making decisions. There's just awareness, wide, open, still, borderless. And somehow from that stillness, everything else arises. Thoughts appear, emotions stir, memories flash. The story of me unfolds, day by day, moment by moment, but none of that story ever reveals a thing. Just activity, just content, just movement on a screen with no visible projector. You've built an identity from these pieces, a name, a personality, a history, a set of preferences and fears. But when you really sit with it, without flinching, you realize those aren't you. They're happening to you. They're arising in you. But they are not the center. They're just passing phenomena. You have memories, but memories can shift, fade, distort. You have a body, but your body has changed 1,000 times. Every cell, every organ, every physical aspect of you is temporary. So what remains? What has never changed? Only this simple, quiet sense. I am. Not I am this. Not I am that. Just I am. It's so quiet, so constant, that the mind overlooks it. Because the mind wants form, it wants labels, it wants to define the self like an object on a shelf. But the deeper truth? There's no shelf. There's no object. There's just the awareness that keeps noticing, and that awareness isn't personal, it doesn't belong to a name or a personality. It's not owned, it's not bound, it doesn't need proof. It just is. Always watching, always knowing, always here. So you begin to see. The self you've spent your life defending, perfecting, improving, it's not a fixed thing. It's a moving story. A dance of energy, an echo of patterns, habits, memories, and emotional residue. It feels real because you never questioned it. But when you do, when you finally stop running and look inward with honest, unwavering attention, the center disappears. And what takes its place? Spaciousness. Spaciousness. A vastness that doesn't require identity to exist. And in that realization, something extraordinary happens. The pressure lifts. The anxiety of becoming drops away. You're not a fixed thing trying to hold everything together. You're the field, the space, the openness in which everything is allowed to arise and fall without resistance. You've been taught your whole life to strengthen the self, to find your voice, to know who you are. But maybe the deepest peace comes not from building the self, but from seeing that there is no self, at least not in the way you imagined. There's no core to protect, no image to constantly defend. Just this moment, just this breath, just this field of presence, endlessly watching, endlessly allowing. And it's from that space, not from control, not from identity, that your most authentic life begins to flow. It's in the absence of a rigid me that love becomes real, compassion becomes effortless, creativity emerges without self-consciousness. Because you're no longer thinking, how does this reflect on me? You're no longer filtering life through a lens of what does this say about who I am. You've dropped the mirror, and all that's left is being, unfiltered, unforced, unbound. This doesn't mean you vanish. It doesn't mean you become a void. It means you return to something truer than identity, something more natural than the stories you tell. You return to presence, and presence doesn't need a center. It is the centerless center. And in that paradox you finally rest. You've spent your whole life believing that somewhere behind your eyes is a small central controller, a thinker, a chooser, a watcher. But when you look for it, it's not there, because it never was. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a loss. It's freedom. You're not broken. You're not missing something. You're just waking up from a very convincing illusion. And in that awakening, life becomes vivid, raw, immediate, because now you're not living through a filter. You're not interpreting everything through the identity lens. You're simply here, simply aware. And that awareness, it doesn't need a name. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't ask for anything. It's already whole, already free, already everything you thought you needed to become. And the beauty of this? You don't have to understand it. You don't have to get it right. You just have to look, honestly, gently, bravely, and the illusion dissolves on its own. Not because you destroyed it, but because you saw through it. Because you dared to ask, who am I, really? And you waited long enough in the silence to hear the only true answer. Not a thing, not a role, not a center. Just this. Just presence. Just awareness. Endless. Unchanging. Free. Our brain is not just observing reality, it's telling a story. It's scripting a narrative, moment by moment, about who you are, what's happening, and why it matters. But here's the twist most people never realize. That story is a complete illusion. Not because it's meaningless, but because it's not you. The brain isn't showing you reality as it is, it's constructing a version of it. It's pulling data from different sensory channels, sight, sound, touch, memory, emotion, and stitching it together into something that feels seamless. Something that feels true. But behind that seamlessness there's chaos. There's no you in the control tower. No single unified self making decisions or holding it all together. Neuroscience has been peering into the mind for decades, and what it finds over and over again is this. There is no fixed, stable I in the brain. No headquarters, no core, just a network. A system of modules, functions, reflexes, and processing centers, each doing their own thing, often without ever talking directly to each other. And yet, somehow, you wake up every day feeling like the same person. Like there's continuity. Like there's a thread running through your experience, weaving it all together into a story called me. But that thread isn't real. It's assembled, moment by moment, by a storyteller you didn't even know existed, your brain. And that storyteller doesn't care about truth, it cares about cohesion. It wants the pieces to make sense. It wants the self to feel stable. It wants the movie to keep playing. So you don't stop and realize that you're watching flickering frames of something that's always being edited on the fly. Your brain edits memory constantly. It rewrites details to fit the current emotional tone. It fills in blanks with guesses. It chooses what to ignore and what to highlight, not based on fact, but based on survival, identity, and familiarity. And the wildest part, you don't notice. You don't hear the machinery, because the voice in your head, the one narrating your life, judging your decisions, telling you who you are, that voice is the story. It's not proof of a thinker. It's not evidence of a you. It's just the next line of the script, playing automatically, like background music. But you've mistaken it for the truth. You've believed that the thoughts are being thought by someone, that the feelings are being owned by someone, but they're not. They're just arising. And the one narrating them, it's not you. It's the brain's storyteller, trying to create a coherent identity out of billions of fragmented processes, trying to turn 1,000 disconnected impulses into, I meant to do that. But neuroscience has shown this again and again. Decisions are made before the conscious mind is even aware of them. The body moves before you know why. The mouth speaks before you plan the sentence. And only afterward does the mind rush in to claim authorship and make you believe you were in control all along. That's the illusion. That's the magic trick. The brain performs the action, then it writes the script explaining why. And it's so fast, so fluid, that you believe the explanation came first. You believe the story is driving your life. But in truth, the story is being written after the fact. It's not a driver, it's a narrator trying to keep up. So if you pause, if you really listen, if you pay close attention to the voice in your head, you start to hear how repetitive it is, how reactive, how much of it is borrowed from parents, from society, from trauma, from television shows you forgot you watched. It's not a voice of truth. It's a collage, an echo, a noise pretending to be you. And here's the freedom in seeing that. You don't have to believe it anymore. You don't have to follow its every command. Because once you realize that the storyteller isn't you, you can step back, you can watch it like a movie instead of being lost in the plot. You can see the thought arise and say, "That's not mine. That's just a story." And in that moment, something amazing opens up. Awareness, the real you, not the content of thought, but the space that watches it, the silence behind the story. Because awareness doesn't narrate. It doesn't need to explain itself. It doesn't construct identity. It just sees, clearly, quietly, always here, always now. The more you rest in that awareness, the less tangled you become in the storyteller's web. You start to notice how often the story contradicts itself, how it changes based on your mood or how hungry you are or whether you slept well. You notice how it invents meaning out of randomness, how it blames and shames and defends and justifies just to preserve the illusion of me. But there is no me in the brain. There is no unified self in the machinery. There's only function. There's only process. The self is a hologram, useful, adaptive, but not real. And when you see through it, you don't disappear. You wake up. You're no longer trapped in the narration. You're not trying to fix the character. You're not obsessed with the plot. You're simply here, watching, breathing, alive. Not as a someone, but as awareness itself. As the open space where the story unfolds. This doesn't make you empty. It makes you free. Free from the compulsion to define yourself. Free from the need to be consistent. Free from the pressure to justify your existence through an internal monologue. You don't need to explain yourself to yourself anymore. You don't need to fit a narrative. You're not a story. You're the one who sees that a story is playing. And that shift, that's the beginning of inner peace. Because now you're not fighting the voice. You're not trying to rewrite the script. You're just noticing, letting it rise, letting it fall. Like waves on the surface of a vast ocean. The waves are always changing, but the ocean, it's still here, still deep, still whole. That's you. That's awareness. Not the content of the mind, but the field in which the mind appears. And once you see that clearly, you're no longer at the mercy of the brain's storyteller. You can smile at the narration, you can watch the plot unfold, but you no longer mistake the voice for who you are. You are not the story, you are the silent witness. Always here, always free. You live your life with an unshakable assumption that there's a you behind it all. A solid self, a stable core that ties everything together. Your thoughts, your memories, your decisions, your desires. It feels natural, it feels obvious. Behind every action, every word, every reaction, there must be someone. An I, a doer, a thinker, a chooser. You've never questioned it. Because everyone talks as if it's real. You were given a name, you were told who you are, you were expected to be yourself, and so you began the lifelong task of constructing a self to be. But here's the question most people never stop to ask. Can this self be found? Not imagined, not remembered, found, right now. Look, close your eyes if you need to. Strip away the thoughts, strip away the labels, strip away the memories of who you've been. What remains? Is there a central thing you can point to? A permanent, unchanging self? Or is it all just appearances? Thoughts come, feelings rise, memories flash, desires tug at your attention. but none of them prove a self. They're just content. And content is not a container. You assume that because the thoughts are happening in succession, there must be something tying them together, something behind the curtain, something holding the narrative in place. But that's just how it feels. That's not evidence. That's habit. That's belief. And if you dare to look directly, without flinching, you start to see something unsettling. The self you've been defending might not be there at all, not as a thing, not as an entity, just a presumption, just an echo, just a storyline told so often it began to feel like fact. Think about it. You say, I'm sad, but what is that I? Where does it reside? What does it look like? You say, I made a choice, but did you? Or did thoughts and feelings appear and an action followed? You say, I remember, but the memory is just an image. Who's watching it? Is it the same you that watched every other memory? Or is that just another part of the story? Because here's what's wild. There's no single unbroken thread tying everything together. There's just a series of moments, a series of perceptions, constantly reassembling themselves into something that feels like a self. But when you look for the source, it's not there. There's no captain of the ship. There's just the ship moving. There's no little person inside your head organizing everything. There's just awareness, watching it all unfold. And here's the twist. Awareness doesn't need a self. It doesn't need a name. It doesn't ask for identity. It's simply present, still, silent, always watching. The self is like a mirage that awareness watches but never touches. And the moment you stop chasing it, the moment you stop assuming it's real, is the moment things get strange and free, because suddenly the pressure drops. The need to defend something fragile disappears. The anxiety of who am I no longer needs an answer. It can rest as a question, and in that space something softer emerges, not the rigid self, but a gentle presence, a seeing, a quiet intelligence that doesn't need a story to exist. And maybe that's who you've been all along, not the character in the movie, but the screen it plays on, not the story, but the space in which the story arises. But still, part of you resists. Because if there's no self, then who feels pain? Who falls in love? Who mourns and dreams and laughs? And the answer is both devastating and liberating. No one. These experiences don't belong to anyone. They just are. They appear, they happen, and then they dissolve, just like waves rising and falling on the surface of the ocean. And you are the ocean, not the wave, not the movement, but the vast, silent depth beneath it all. That's why you've never been able to find the self, because you've been looking for something small, something finite. But what you truly are has no borders, no limits, no location. You are not a thing. You are the space in which all things come and go. And when you stop trying to turn yourself into an object, something solid, nameable, complete, you begin to experience something far more profound: stillness, freedom, peace. Not because you figured it all out, but because you stopped pretending there was something to figure out. You stopped trying to tie a ribbon around the wind, and instead you let it blow through you. You let life move. You let thought pass. You let emotion rise and fall like weather in an open sky. And the sky never asks for identity. It never needs a story. It just is, and so are you. But don't misunderstand this. This isn't nihilism. This isn't emptiness. This is presence. This is aliveness without tension, because when the presumed self dissolves, there's more room for everything else. More love, more empathy, more truth, more connection, not less. Because you're no longer trapped inside a fortress of identity. You're open, you're porous, you're available to life in a way that the self never could be. And that's when things begin to feel real again. Not because you've returned to the story, but because you've stepped out of it. You're no longer looking at life through the lens of me. You're simply looking. And in that pure seeing, without interpretation, without self-reference, there is clarity, there is beauty, there is peace. You may still use the word I. You may still speak as if you are a person, but deep down, you know the truth. You know the self is a costume, a tool, a temporary shape, not a prison, not a possession, certainly not your essence. So now, the choice is yours. You can keep pretending the self is real. You can keep grasping at identity, defending it, protecting it, perfecting it, or you can let it go. You can step into the unknown and rest, not as a self, but as awareness, as openness, as the ungraspable mystery you've always been, not the one who sees, but the seeing itself. You've been taught to believe your identity is something solid, fixed, foundational. You carry it like a badge, your name, your past, your likes and dislikes. You say, "This is who I am," as if there's a concrete self beneath the surface. But have you ever stopped to look, really look? What is identity, if not a collection of patterns? A set of remembered behaviors, social feedback, cultural roles and conditioned responses. Your identity didn't come from some inner truth. It was assembled. You were told your name. You were praised for certain traits, scolded for others. You were rewarded when you conformed, rejected when you didn't. And slowly, piece by piece, a character began to form. It felt like you were discovering yourself. But what if you were only memorizing a performance, repeating it enough times that it felt natural? What if your identity is more like a mirage? Not fake, but not solid either. A mirage looks real. It has form, depth, weight, but it only appears when certain conditions align, and when you reach for it, your hand closes on empty space. That's identity. It's not a lie. It's not meaningless. But it's not what you think it is. It's the brain taking a chaotic mess of sensations, emotions, and memories and wrapping it all in a neat package. This is me, it says. But when you ask who's speaking, there's no one there. Just thoughts echoing in an empty chamber. Just mental weather. Patterns pretending to be a person. And you've believed it. You've believed you are the personality. You've believed you are the image in the mirror, the voice in the head, the story of your past. But what if you're none of those? What if all those elements are just costumes, temporary roles in a play called My Life? And you're not the actor. You're the stage, the awareness in which all these identities come and go. Because look closely, your identity changes depending on where you are. You're one person at work, another with family, another entirely when you're alone in nature with no mirrors or expectations. So which one is real? Which mask is your face? Or have you just become so good at switching roles that you forgot there was something watching behind them? That watcher isn't trying to be anything. It doesn't have a personality. It doesn't care about approval. It's just there, silent, still, undeniable, watching the mirage of identity shimmer and shift. This is the painful truth. You've spent so much time trying to perfect your identity, but you were refining a ghost, trying to give structure to something that can never be nailed down. You say things like, "I'm just not that kind of person." But who told you that? Was it your parents? Your culture? Was it a defense against pain? A reaction to rejection? So many of your self-definitions were inherited, picked up unconsciously and worn like armor. And now you mistake the armor for skin. But it's not you. It never was. And that's why the search for who you really are always leaves you unsatisfied. Because the more you look, the more the edges blur. The more you define, the more restricted you feel. You say, "This is me," but deep down you feel the tightness. You sense that there's something more, something beyond the categories, something untouched by labels or history or personality traits, something wordless. And the reason it feels wordless is because it can't be captured in the structure of identity. It doesn't fit inside introvert or extrovert. It doesn't fit inside victim or survivor. It doesn't even fit inside human. Because what you are is not a role. It's not a role, it's not a label, it's not even a mind. It's the space in which the mind happens. And in that space, there's no need to define yourself. There's no pressure to get it right. You're no longer trying to be someone. You're just being. And in that, there's peace. A quiet liberation. Because when you're no longer attached to identity, you're free to respond authentically. You're not acting out a script. You're not defending an image. You're simply alive, moment to moment, breath to breath, responding from presence, not persona. That's when love becomes real. That's when connection becomes honest, because now you're not relating as someone. You're relating as awareness itself. And awareness doesn't judge. It doesn't pretend. It doesn't cling to the past or project into the future. It just sees, clearly, kindly, freely. But here's the thing, you don't need to destroy your identity. You don't need to erase your history. That's not the point. The point is to stop confusing the mirage for the truth. To stop gripping so tightly to something that was never meant to be held. To let the patterns play out, without forgetting that they're just patterns. You can still be you. But now you know it's a role, a useful mask, a costume worn in love, not in fear. And that changes everything. Because when identity is no longer a prison, it becomes a dance. You can play, you can shift, you can evolve without anxiety. Because you're no longer trying to protect something fragile. You're grounded in something deeper, something real. Not the mirage, but the space. Not the self, but the seeing. And in that seeing, there's a kind of joy, a lightness. Because the truth has always been this simple. You were never the image in the mirror. You were the presence looking into it. You were never the role. You were the light behind the mask. And now that you've remembered, you don't have to pretend anymore. You can just be as you are, without the story, without the weight. Just the open, silent miracle of now. Just the awareness that never needed a name. You've always felt like there's something watching. Not in a paranoid way, but a deep, silent awareness just behind your experience. It's not loud. It doesn't speak in words, but it sees. It sees your thoughts come and go. It watches your body move through the world. It notices emotion rising in waves, sensation flickering like candlelight. You've called it me. You've assumed it's yourself. A quiet witness behind the eyes. Still, reliable, unshaken by the chaos. But here's the question. What is that witness? What is this eye that seems to be watching your life unfold? You can't see it in the mirror. You can't isolate it with a scan. You can't pull it out and hold it in your hands. You've always assumed it's real, but have you ever tried to find it? Not intellectually, but directly. Sit still, close your eyes, turn inward. And now search, not with thoughts, but with attention. Where is the one who is watching? You might feel presence. You might feel awareness, but where is the thing behind the awareness? Where is the watcher? No matter how long you look, you won't find a shape. You won't find a boundary. You won't find a place where this observer begins or ends. And that's the moment the ground begins to shake. Because you realize the witness isn't personal. It isn't inside you. It isn't yours. In fact, it's not even a thing. It's not an entity you can describe. It's the space in which description arises. The witness doesn't belong to the story. It's what sees the story. It doesn't act. It doesn't choose. It just watches. Silently. Effortlessly. Always. And yet, you exist. You're aware. So something must be here, right? Yes. But it's not what you thought. You're not the self watching from behind the curtain. You are the curtain. You are the space. You are the awareness itself. And awareness doesn't need a name. It doesn't require a face. It doesn't have a past or a future. It simply knows. And in that knowing, everything else appears. Thoughts, feelings, sounds, the sensation of your body in the chair, all of it is appearing to something. And that something is not inside the world is inside it. Let that settle. The world appears within your awareness, not the other way around. So this witness you've assumed was you may not be a separate self at all. It may be the one awareness showing up through all experiences. Not your awareness. Awareness itself. Not my consciousness, just consciousness, and you are that. Not the one who observes, but the observing. Not the person who sees, but the seeing. And that changes everything. Because suddenly, all the layers you've built around this imagined observer begin to dissolve. You're not a character behind the scenes. You're not a thinker behind the thoughts. You are the light in which thought arises, the space in which emotion plays, the quiet openness that holds it all. And you don't have to understand this. You don't have to wrap your mind around it, because the mind can't grasp what isn't shaped. It can only label, divide, compare. But the witness has no edges to define. It is boundaryless. And in that boundarylessness is your freedom. Because now you don't have to fight to hold yourself together. You don't have to protect an identity. You don't have to keep defending some hidden core. There is no core. Only openness, only presence, only this. And what a relief. What a profound and terrifying relief. To let go of the imagined one behind the scenes. To see that the witness is not something you have, it's what you are. You've spent your whole life assuming there's a person behind the glass. Watching, choosing, steering. But it's not true. There is only awareness, looking through different lenses, like sunlight passing through stained glass, taking on color and form, but never changing its essence. The color shifts, the shape varies, but the light, always the same. So maybe this witness you felt is not you in the personal sense. Maybe it's the same light shining through all forms, and what appears as you is just the particular lens life is using right now. Not separate, not independent, just a unique expression of something universal. And this is where the fear starts to fade, because you're not isolated, you're not alone inside your head, trying to hold everything together. You're not some tiny flame in the dark. You are the space itself, the sky, not the weather, the light, not the shadow, the witness beyond form. And that witness doesn't cling, it doesn't control, it just is. And in that being is peace. Because now you don't need to be someone, you don't need to prove anything. You can let the story unfold without gripping it. You can let the emotions rise and fall without attaching. You can let thoughts come and go without believing every one of them. Because you are not the content, you are the container. You are the one seeing, not the thing see. And when you live from that place, everything changes. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop grasping. You begin opening. Life moves through you, not against you, because now you're not resisting what is. You're simply witnessing, and witnessing is effortless. It doesn't require identity. It doesn't require belief. It doesn't even require thought. It just requires presence, stillness, openness. And that you already are. You've always been, even before the name, even before the thoughts, even before the memories and roles and preferences. There was this witnessing, this aliveness, and it's still here, unchanged, unbroken, unaffected by the ups and downs of the human experience. So let yourself rest here, not as the person, but as the presence, not as the identity, but as the awareness beyond identity, the formless witness that watches the entire play of life, without judgment, without fear, without need. You don't have to become it. You already are it. You don't have to seek it. You just have to remember. Remember what's always been watching, and return to the only place you've ever truly been, here, Now, not behind the eyes, but in the light that shines through them, there's a moment. You miss it most mornings, but it's always there. Fragile, fleeting, and almost invisible. It happens just before you remember who you are. You open your eyes, but for a breath, a heartbeat, a blink of eternity. There's no name, no past, no future, no identity, just presence, just awareness, still, silent, whole. And then, like floodwaters breaking a dam, the story comes rushing back. Your name, your job, your calendar, your worries, your personality, the entire narrative of you boots up in an instant, and just like that, you're back in the cage. Back in the dream. The strange thing is, you never question it, because the story feels true. The thoughts arrive and you follow. The roles return and you perform. But that brief moment, that tiny space before the self returns, that's where your freedom lives. Because in that space, nothing is missing. There's no one to impress, no guilt to carry, no goals to chase. There's just being, unfiltered, unlabeled, untouched by the machinery of memory. And the fact that this happens every single morning, that's the clue. That's the glitch in the matrix. Because if you were truly your story, it wouldn't have to reboot every day. But it does. Like software launching on startup. Your mind loads the program. It says this is your name, these are your problems, these are your beliefs, and without hesitation you accept. You identify. You lock the dreamer back in the cage. Not because you're being punished, but because it feels familiar. Because the story of me is so deeply conditioned that it feels like home, even when it hurts. But let's slow down. Look at what's actually happening. You go to sleep. Consciousness fades into dreams or darkness, and for hours there is no story, no self-concept, no character, only awareness drifting. Then morning comes, and for a flicker of time you wake into blankness. The system hasn't loaded yet, and in that blankness, if you're lucky, you'll feel the peace, the spaciousness, the absence of burden. But it never lasts, because the mind hates a vacuum, so it scrambles to fill it, and the moment thought says, I am, the game resumes. But what if you paused, right there, right before it all comes rushing back? What if you stayed just a little longer in that silent space? What would you find? Not boredom, not emptiness, but freedom. Because what's absent in that space is not reality, it's illusion. It's the constructed identity, the web of memory and narrative that convinces you you're a fixed person with a fixed life. And when that structure doesn't immediately reassert itself, you glimpse what's underneath. Pure awareness, not owned by a self, not shaped by belief, just watching, just being. And if that awareness can exist without a story, then maybe you can too. Not as a person, but as presence. Not as a role, but as the field in which all roles arise. This is the dreamer's cage. Not because you're asleep, but because you keep mistaking the dream for truth. You keep thinking, this is who I am. This is how life works. These are my problems, my limits, my truths. But none of that is written in stone. It's just thought, memory, mental weather. And thought is not the enemy, but when you believe every thought is you, you stay trapped. You live inside the bars of belief, and they're invisible until you stop, until you look. And that's the power of the waking moment, because every morning reality offers you a doorway. It opens the cage before you remember you're supposed to be inside it, and you can step through. You can notice the story trying to rebuild itself. You can hear the voice starting to narrate, okay, today I have to, and instead of following it, you can watch and say, there it is, the dream rebuilding, and in that noticing something sacred happens. You're no longer identified with the character. You're not hypnotized by the voice. You're the space in which the voice appears. And that space, it's always been here, even in your most painful moments, even when you felt lost, anxious, overwhelmed. There was something quietly witnessing, not judging, not controlling, just present. And that's the you before the story, the you untouched by memory, the you who doesn't need to become anything, because it already is. So why is this important? Because the dreamer's cage is what keeps you seeking, keeps you chasing peace in the future, keeps you thinking, one day I'll be enough. But what if you already are? Not because you've earned it, not because you've perfected the self, but because the self is just a mirage, and you're what sees through it. This doesn't mean you lose your personality. It doesn't mean you forget your name. It just means you stop confusing the costume for the actor. You stop mistaking the thoughts for truth. You stop worshipping the identity and start remembering what holds it all. And that remembering, that's awakening. Not a one-time event, but 1,000 small recognitions. Each time you wake up, not just in the morning but in the moment, you loosen the grip of the cage. You feel the bars melt. You see the dream for what it is, not an enemy but a play, and you're the awareness that can choose to play, or to rest, to act, or to watch, to identify, or to dissolve, and that choice is yours, not in the future, not after more seeking, but right now, in this breath, in this awareness. So the next time you wake up, listen, feel, before the me returns, before the memory loads, before the voice says, let's begin again, just notice, you're still here, even without the story, even without the cage, even without the dream. And that quiet space before the self, that's not emptiness, that's home. You've had dreams before where everything felt absolutely real, flying over cities, falling through space, talking to people who passed away long ago, wandering through places that never existed, and in the moment, it made perfect sense. You didn't stop to question the logic. You didn't say, wait, this isn't possible. You simply experienced, as if it were real. You felt emotion, you made choices, you reacted to the dream world as if it were solid ground. Because in the dream it was. And then you woke up. You blinked, you sat in silence, and suddenly everything that felt so real became absurd. You laughed, maybe, shook your head. That was wild. But here's the thing you rarely consider. While it was happening, you believed in it completely. There was no part of you pretending. No sense of separation. You weren't watching the dream. You were the dream. You were inside it, breathing it, believing it. Why? Because experience doesn't ask for your approval, it just unfolds. And if it feels real, you accept it. That's how dreams work. But now here's the deeper question. How do you know this isn't a dream too? What makes this waking life any different? You say because this is consistent, this has rules, this is agreed upon. But that's just more belief. Dreams have rules too. They have patterns, physics, expectations. Until they don't. They shift, suddenly, effortlessly. And in the dream you accept the shift. You normalize the impossible. Your hands melt. You breathe underwater. You talk to animals. And none of it feels strange until you wake up. So if you believe something in a dream without question, and you believe this reality now without question, what's the difference, really? Is it time? Is it memory? Is it the fact that others around you seem to validate it? Because dreams can contain crowds. Dreams can feel like lifetimes. Some dreams even carry emotional weight so deep it lingers into your day. So how do you know this experience right now isn't just another layer, another convincing dream? You don't. And that's the doorway. That's where the edge of illusion begins to crack. Because if you can't be sure this isn't a dream, then what happens to all your assumptions? All your rigid beliefs? All your fears, plans, identities? They loosen, they soften, because now you've seen how quickly reality can change. You've felt yourself believe in unreality, and now, maybe, you're ready to stop believing so blindly, not in a skeptical way, but in a curious way, a conscious way, because you're not trying to prove that life is fake. You're trying to remember how deeply conditioned you've been, conditioned to take everything at face value, to never ask, what is this? Really? But that question is the most important one you'll ever ask, because here's what dreams reveal. Reality is constructed inside awareness, not the other way around. It's not that you're a body moving through a world, it's that a world arises inside awareness. And you call it me? In the dream, the body isn't real, but you feel it, you move it, you fear for it. So why wouldn't the same be true now? Maybe this body, this name, this life is just the current character. The current dream chemical consciousness is playing through. And the real you isn't inside the dream, it's the awareness watching it unfold. Just like in dreams. And this realization isn't meant to be disorienting. It's meant to be freeing, because now the rules soften, the stories unravel, the burdens you've carried of needing to be someone, needing to control everything, they begin to fall away. Because if this is a dream, then you don't have to fix it. You can wake up within it. You can become lucid. That's what lucid dreaming is, right? When you realize you're dreaming while still inside the dream. You don't wake up in bed. You wake up in consciousness. And suddenly the dream bends with you, responds to you, reflects you. So what if you became lucid here? Not by manipulating the dream, but by remembering it is one. That the world you see is not out there. It's projected from within, from the mind, from the nervous system, from conditioned perception. And beneath all that, awareness, silent, unmoving, unchanging. You've never touched the world. You've only ever touched your experience of the world. And that experience is filtered, shaped, painted by your mind. Just like in dreams. And when you see that clearly, something sacred opens, a softness, a humility, a remembering. Because now you know your judgments aren't final. Your pain isn't permanent. Your story isn't fixed. It's all fluid, all part of a landscape that responds to the dreamer's state. And who is the dreamer? Not the ego, not the character, not the voice in your head, but awareness itself, the field in which all dreaming happens. You are that field. And you've forgotten. But even forgetting is part of the dream. Even confusion is part of the script. And now you're remembering what's real. Not in the sense of proving reality, but in the sense of waking up inside it. Because waking up doesn't mean rejecting this world. It means seeing through it, seeing the impermanence, the fluidity, the way nothing holds still, nothing stays. Everything arises and dissolves in awareness, like waves on the ocean, like images in a dream. And when you live from that place, something beautiful happens. You stop clinging, you stop forcing, you stop believing every story your mind tells. You can let things be, because you know they're not as solid as they seem. They're dream stuff, appearing, disappearing, and you're not the dream. You're the awareness in which the dream arises. You're the open sky watching the clouds pass. You're the silence beneath the noise. You're the stillness at the center of the spinning world, and in that stillness, you don't need to escape the dream, you just need to wake up within it. So you can walk through this life with eyes open, with heart open, knowing that even though it feels real, even though it matters, it's also a dance, a play, a miracle. And miracles were never meant to be controlled. They were meant to be witnessed. So witness this one. This breath, this moment, not with fear, but with wonder. Because even if this is a dream, it's the most beautiful one you've ever known. Reach out your hand, touch the surface in front of you. It feels solid, real, undeniable. But here's the twist. You're not touching the world. You're touching your experience of the world. There is no direct contact between you and what's out there. There never has been. What you're feeling is a translation, a filtered signal, pressure, temperature, texture, all delivered as data through nerves and synapses, then interpreted by your brain into the sensation you call touch. And that interpretation, it feels like reality. But it's not reality, it's perception. Your experience of the world is not the world itself. It's a simulation constructed from electrical impulses, painted by your expectations, colored by your emotions. The world you think you know, the one you see, hear, touch, and taste, isn't raw. It's processed, edited, translated into something your mind can manage, and it's been that way since the day you were born. You've never experienced the world directly, only your version of it, your model, your rendering. And here's what makes it even more wild. You don't experience the same world as anyone else, not even close, because every brain builds its own version of reality, based on its own wiring, its own memory, its own wounds and conditioning. So, the real world? It's not a fixed thing. It's a shared hallucination, a beautifully coordinated guess. And yours is just one of billions, but it's so convincing you rarely stop to question it. You wake up in the morning, open your eyes, and assume what you're seeing is out there. But what you're actually seeing is in here, inside your mind, inside your awareness. Think about light, for example. Light doesn't enter your brain. It hits the retina in your eyes, where it's converted into signals and passed along the optic nerve. Your brain receives those signals and then, somehow, constructs an image. It takes that raw, meaningless data and turns it into a picture of a world. That's not seeing the world. That's creating one. The same is true for sound. Waves of vibration hit your eardrum. They're interpreted as pitch, tone, rhythm, then assigned meaning, a voice, a song, a threat, a comfort. None of that lives out there. It's born in you, and it's different for everyone. What sounds like music to you might sound like noise to someone else. What feels comforting to you might feel overwhelming to another, because it's all shaped by perception, and perception is never objective, it's personal. It's filtered through layers of experience, emotion, and expectation, and yet it feels objective. That's the trap. That's the illusion. Your mind shows you a model, and you mistake it for truth. You believe the interface is the reality. But they're not the same. It's like looking at a map and thinking you're walking through the territory. You're not. You're walking through a symbol, a version. And when you forget that, you suffer, you start reacting to your own projections. You think someone's angry with you because of how they look, but maybe they weren't angry at all. You interpret silence as rejection, but maybe it was peace. You see threat where there is none. You assign meaning that isn't there, and you build a world around those meanings, a world that feels like it's coming from outside of you, but it's all being built from within. And here's what makes it even more powerful. You're doing it all the time, every moment, right now. You're not seeing what is. You're seeing what your brain has decided you should see. You're hearing what your conditioning allows you to hear. You're feeling based on how your past has taught you to feel. So what happens when you begin to notice this? Everything changes. Because now you can start to question what you've always accepted. You can pause before reacting. You can ask, is this real, or is this my perception? You can soften the edges of certainty, and in that softening there's space. Space to breathe. Space to see more clearly. Space to choose differently. Because now, you're not trapped inside perception. You're aware of perception. And that awareness, that's your anchor. That's your ground. Because awareness is the only thing that doesn't change. Everything else is in flux. The sights, the sounds, the emotions, the stories, they rise and fall. They twist and turn, but awareness stays, it watches, it receives, it holds, without effort, without opinion. It's not shaped by perception. It's what perception appears within, and you are that awareness. You are not the one seeing, you are the seeing itself. You are not the mind creating the story, you are the silence underneath it. And when you rest there, even for a moment, you remember, you don't need to fix the world. You need to see it for what it is, a dream, a display, a sacred illusion unfolding in consciousness. And that doesn't make it meaningless. It makes it magical, because now you don't take every reaction as gospel. You don't believe every thought. You don't confuse perception with reality. You simply watch, you witness, and from that witnessing comes freedom, not the kind of freedom that fights against the world, but the kind that floats above it. You can feel everything, but cling to nothing. You can care deeply but carry lightly, because you know this isn't what it seems, it never was. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the world doesn't need to be raw and literal to be sacred. Maybe its beauty lies in its appearance, its dance, its shimmering veil, and you are the space that holds the dance, the presence behind the perception, the light in which it all appears. So touch the world gently, hold your stories loosely, and let perception be what it is, a lens, a brushstroke, a poem written by the nervous system, but not the truth, not the totality. You've never touched the world, you've only touched your awareness of it. And that awareness, that's where the real world lives. Not outside, but in you, as you, forever watching, forever awake. What you see is not the world. It's your brain's interpretation of it, a model, a rendering, a mental simulation created in real time so convincing that you've mistaken it for reality. You believe you're experiencing the world directly, but you never have, not even once. What you're experiencing is a version of the world constructed inside your skull, and it's not even trying to be truthful. Your brain doesn't care about truth, it cares about survival. It cares about efficiency, it cares about functionality. So instead of showing you reality, it gives you something useful, a shortcut, a simplified interface, a story that works well enough to keep you alive, connected and sane. But it's not the thing itself, it's a model. And the most dangerous part, you don't know you're looking at a model, because it's seamless. You don't see the rendering. You see the result, just like a phone screen hides the code behind it, just like a video game hides the calculations that create the world on your TV. Your brain hides the machinery behind perception. So you live inside a masterpiece of biological art, and you believe it's the real world. But it's not. It's a simulation, a hallucination you happen to agree with. And this isn't philosophy, this is neuroscience. Right now your brain is assembling reality from scattered fragments of data, light hitting your retina, vibrations in your ear, signals from your skin, chemical messages from your gut, and even then, it's not enough. So your brain starts filling in gaps, guessing, projecting, assuming, because it has to act fast. It can't wait for perfect data. It just needs something good enough to get you through the day. So you see what you expect. You hear what fits your story. You interpret the world through the filter of everything you've already believed, and because it feels real, you trust it. You never question the model. You never think to ask, is this true? Because it doesn't feel like a model. It feels like the world. But stop for a second. Take a breath. Look around. That color you see, it doesn't exist outside your perception. It's not out there. It's your brain translating wavelengths into something you can understand. Same with sound. Same with temperature. Same with every sensory experience you've ever had. None of it is raw reality. It's all rendered, transformed, filtered through biology and belief and memory. So what happens when you believe the model is reality? You suffer, because now you're reacting to a world that doesn't exist the way you think it does. You're fighting shadows. You're arguing with ghosts. You're feeling threatened by illusions projected onto your mental screen. You assume people see what you see. You assume they hear what you hear. You assume your version of life is universal. But it's not. Each person lives inside their own simulation, their own constructed world. No two models are identical. And that's why communication breaks down. That's why conflict happens. That's why love feels impossible sometimes. Because we forget we're not interacting with the world. We're interacting with models, and the models don't match. But what if you remembered? What if you started noticing the construction, noticing how the world forms in your mind? You wouldn't stop seeing, but you'd stop believing every thought. You'd stop assuming your feelings are absolute truth. You'd begin to question, not in fear, but in freedom. Because now you know, the world you respond to is a story, a dream your brain tells itself, and that dream can shift, because the model isn't fixed. It adapts. Every new experience updates the simulation. That's how learning happens. But most of us don't let the model update. We keep forcing old interpretations onto new situations. We see through the lens of wounds we never healed. We react to people based on past pain. We assume this moment is just another version of what hurt us before. And so we relive the same dream over and over. But the truth is, you're not locked in. You're not stuck with one model. You can soften it, you can upgrade it, you can even learn to see without it just for a moment. You can rest in the raw awareness beneath the simulation, that space before the world gets labeled, before it becomes mine or theirs, before it becomes good or bad, safe or dangerous. And in that space, there's peace, because now you're not reacting, you're witnessing. You're not imprisoned by the model, you're aware of it, and that awareness is freedom. That awareness is the key, because the brain will always construct. That's what it's built to do, but you don't have to believe everything it builds. You can step back, you can look at the model as a tool, not as truth. A map, not the territory. A lens, not the light. And when you do that, you don't have to take things so personally. You don't have to grip the story so tightly. You don't have to defend your version of reality. You realize everyone is living in their own construction, their own virtual world. So now you stop arguing about who's right. You start asking, what's true for you? What model are you living in? And that opens the door to compassion, to curiosity, to connection, because now you're not clashing models. You're exploring them together. You're learning how others see the world, and maybe, just maybe, expanding your own in the process. So yes, your brain constructs reality, but you are not the brain. You are the awareness watching it all happen. You are the field in which the model appears. You are not the simulation, you're the light behind it. And that light? That's the real world. That's what's constant. That's what doesn't shift. So while the brain builds dreams, you stay grounded in presence. You rest in the quiet knowing that what appears is just that, an appearance. Useful? Yes. Important? Of course. But real? Not in the way you thought. And when you see this, you can finally relax. You can stop gripping the illusion. You can start living with openness, with play, with freedom. Because you're no longer a prisoner of the model, you're its conscious witness, you're awake within the construction, and that changes everything. You wake from a dream and whisper, that wasn't real. But pause. Ask yourself, why? Why wasn't it real? Was it because you flew through the sky? Because time moved strangely? Because you spoke with someone long gone? Maybe. But what if the real reason, the one no one talks about, is that you simply woke up into another construct, one that just happens to be more consistent? Because while you were dreaming, it felt just as real as this. You felt joy, panic, confusion, love, loss. Your body responded, your heart raced, you cried, you ran, you believed, and it wasn't pretend. Your body, your chemistry was fully involved. So how is that not real? The answer is unsettling. Because if both dream and waking experience are immersive and fully believed in the moment, then what separates them? What gives this waking life more weight, you might say? This world is shared, it's more stable. Other people experience it too. But are you sure? You've never actually left your own experience. You've never stepped outside your own awareness to verify what anyone else is truly seeing. You've only ever lived inside your mind. Even in waking life, you're not experiencing reality directly. You're experiencing your brain's rendering of it, your perception, your interpretation, your story. So what if both dream and waking states are just different frequencies of the same projection, two layers of the same illusion? What if the only difference is how strongly you cling to this one? In a dream, you surrender to the flow. You don't try to control gravity or logic, you go with it. But in waking life, you resist. You say, this is my identity, this is my job, this is who I am. You build structures, you create permanence, you cling harder. But clinging doesn't make something real. It just makes it feel more important. So again, what separates the dream from waking life? Not emotion, not logic, not vividness, just belief. And the moment you begin to see that, something profound opens, because now you can ask, what if this moment, right now, is also a dream? What if this body, this story, this name, is just the waking version of a nighttime character? What if you're dreaming this you into being, just like you dream the flying version of you at night? What if the real you has no name, no form, just presence, just watching, and the rest is scenery, costume, theater, projection? That might feel strange at first, maybe even frightening, but let it sink in. Let yourself consider it, not as a theory, but as a direct inquiry. Look around. Notice how solid everything seems. Then notice, you're not experiencing the world. You're experiencing your perception of the world. Sight, sound, smell, all filtered, all shaped by memory, emotion, expectation, just like in dreams. And you can test this. In a dream, you believe something's real until you wake up. So what if you could wake up within this dream too? Not by leaving it, but by noticing it. Noticing that your thoughts are projections, your emotions are weather, your beliefs are storylines, and none of them are the truth. They're just passing images in the mind. And that realization? That's lucidity. That's awareness breaking through the illusion, not to destroy it, but to see it clearly. And in that clarity, something beautiful happens. You stop grasping. You stop reacting like everything is permanent. You begin to flow again. Not because you've become detached, but because you've remembered this is all a dance, a movement in consciousness, an ever-changing dream held in something larger. And what is that something larger? Awareness. The one thing that never changes between dream and waking. In dreams, there's awareness. In waking life, there's awareness. Thoughts, bodies, scenery, they come and go. But awareness stays. That's the thread. That's the truth underneath both dreams and daylight. Not the content, the context, the field in which it all appears. And that's where your power lives, not in trying to control the dream, but in remembering the dreamer. Not the character, not the plot, the presence, the silence, watching it all unfold. So ask yourself now, how do you know this isn't a dream? Not in theory, in practice. What makes this moment real? Because it feels stable? Because it's agreed upon? Because it follows the rules? But dreams can feel stable too. Dreams have rules. Until they don't. They're agreed upon until the plot twists. So what makes this moment so different? And more importantly, what happens when you stop needing to make that distinction? What happens when you let go of the need to label something as real or unreal, and instead focus on what's witnessing it all? That's the shift. That's awakening. Not replacing one illusion with another, but stepping back enough to see the illusion as illusion, and resting in the stillness behind it. that stillness has no beginning or end. It wasn't born with your body, it won't die with it. It holds your dreams, it holds your waking life. It's never confused, never reactive, just present always. And from that presence, everything becomes sacred. Not because it's real, but because it's here, because it's part of the dream you're dreaming now. Because even an illusion can carry beauty, grace, and healing when seen through clear eyes. So let the boundaries blur. Let dream and waking dissolve into one stream of experience. Don't cling to this as more important than that. Don't fear one and worship the other. See both as waves in the same ocean, stories inside the same consciousness. And know this, you are not the story. You are not the dream. You are not even the mind that watches it. You are the awareness that has no form. The light in which all shadows dance. The silence beneath all sounds. You are not in the dream is in you. And now that you remember, you're free. Dreams shift. Waking life morphs. But something in you stays the same. Something silent. Still. Unmoved. Call it awareness. And once you begin to recognize it, everything else starts to unravel, gently, like mist burned away by morning light. You dream of flying, of falling, of speaking with strangers who know your name. In that dream, you believe, you experience, you react, and what makes it possible? Awareness. Without it, the dream couldn't be known. Then morning comes, the alarm goes off, and suddenly you're here again. This life, this body, this name, but it's not a different you that wakes up. It's the same awareness, the same perceiving presence. The only thing that changed was the scenery. One world dissolved, another one emerged. But the witness, it never left. That's the key no one tells you. That's the secret hiding in plain sight. You are not the content of experience. You are the awareness of experience. You were there when the dream unfolded. You're here now as the waking unfolds. Different stories, same seer. And here's what makes that revolutionary. Everything else in your life changes. Your body ages. Your emotions rise and fall. Your beliefs evolve. Your memories fade. But awareness doesn't age. It doesn't come and go. It doesn't need fixing or upgrading or healing. Because it's not broken, it never has been. And if you've never noticed it before, that doesn't mean it wasn't there. It just means your attention was elsewhere, focused on the drama, the noise, the movement. But underneath all that, beneath the thinking, the feeling, the doing, was this quiet watcher, watching every thought, witnessing every emotion, receiving every sensation, without judgment, without resistance. Just being. And here's what's wild. It's been with you since the beginning. Not your first memory. Before that. Before language. Before identity. Even as a newborn, awareness was there. It didn't know your name. It didn't need to. It simply noticed. Sound, light, warmth, sensation. It didn't label, it didn't interpret, it just watched. It just received, and it's been doing that ever since. So now the question becomes, if awareness is present in both dreams and waking life, which is more real? Is it the world that changes or the awareness that doesn't? Think of it this way. Every experience you've ever had has passed through awareness, like clouds drifting across a sky. They come, they go, but the sky doesn't change. It doesn't hold on, it doesn't resist. It allows. And you are that sky. You are not the clouds. You are the space they pass through. But here's the strange part. You've spent your whole life identifying with the clouds, with the thoughts, the roles, the emotions. You've said, I am sad, I am angry, I am afraid. But are you? Or are those just temporary weather patterns, passing moods, sensations moving across the surface of something deeper? Because sadness comes and goes, fear rises and falls, but you, as awareness, remain. You're not touched by what moves through you. You're the space that holds it all. And when you see that, a profound peace opens up. Not the peace of everything going your way, but the peace of knowing you are not what's happening. You are what's watching it happen. And this isn't an escape, it's a coming home, a returning to what's always been true. Because when you rest in awareness, you're not denying life. You're finally seeing it clearly, without filters, without stories, just raw, vibrant presence. This is the heart of spiritual awakening. Not adding something new, not becoming better, but remembering what's never left. Remembering that in every moment, dream or waking, you are aware. And awareness doesn't choose sides. It doesn't say this moment is sacred, that one isn't. It receives all of it. The pain, the joy, the confusion, the clarity. It holds them like a mother holds her child, with tenderness, with space, with unconditional presence. So you might ask, if I'm awareness, why do I suffer? Because you forget. You fall into the story. You identify with the voice in your head. You believe the character is who you are, and in that forgetting, suffering arises. Not because of what's happening, but because you believe you are the one it's happening to. You believe you are the cloud, not the sky. You believe you are the emotion, not the witness of it. But the moment you remember, even for a breath, everything shifts. The story softens. The fear dissolves, not because the world changes, but because your relationship to it does. You're no longer trying to control the dream, you're awake within it. And that's where power lives. That's where freedom is found. In the silent, spacious knowing beneath all appearances. So what do you do with this? You watch. You notice. When a thought arises, I'm not enough, you don't argue. You just notice. There's a thought. When fear bubbles up, you don't suppress it, you hold it in awareness, you feel it fully, and you remember, this is not me. It's moving through me. Because you are still, you are clear, you are the one seeing, not the thing seen. And when you start living from that place, you don't need to escape your life. You don't need to change everything, you simply begin to see everything differently. You see your partner, your job, your body, not as burdens, not as definitions, but as expressions, movements in the dream, dances in awareness, and you are the dance floor, you are the container, the canvas, the light in which all of this plays. So whether you are dreaming or waking, meditating or weeping, laughing or grieving, the constant isn't the content, it's the awareness. And that awareness is you. Not the small you, not the personality, but the vast you. The silent presence that was never born and will never die. The one who was there in the dream. The one who is here now. And the one who will be here long after this moment fades. Not watching from a distance, but intimately present, utterly still, radiantly alive. And when you live as that awareness, there's nothing left to prove, nothing left to fix, nothing left to chase, because you've already arrived, right here, as the one who sees. You've been told you're a witness, that you're here to observe life, to respond to what happens, to react to what unfolds. But what if that's only half the story? What if you're not just an observer of reality, but a participant? What if you're helping to create the very thing you think you're watching? You've been living as if reality is fixed, like there's a world out there that's separate from you, solid, objective, unaffected by your inner life. But that's the illusion. The truth is more mysterious, more intimate. You don't simply observe reality, you help paint it, not with brushes or tools, but with your attention, with your beliefs, with your emotions and expectations. Every moment you are projecting meaning onto the canvas of existence, and the universe responds, not always in obvious ways, not in the form of immediate miracles or sudden changes, but in subtle, undeniable rhythms, in the way opportunities arise, in how people respond to you, in what you notice and what you ignore, Because perception is not passive, it's generative. You're not looking at reality, you're looking through a lens that you are constantly shaping. Every belief is a brushstroke. Every thought colors the scene. Every expectation sets the tone for what you're about to experience. And once you understand this, not as a concept but as a living truth, you begin to reclaim your power. Because now you realize you are not separate from the life you're living. You are embedded in it, entangled with it, shaping it from the inside out. Think of your mind like a projector. Whatever image is inside, whatever film is running, that's what gets cast onto the world. If your mind is filled with scarcity, the world will look scarce. If your heart expects rejection, you'll interpret silence as abandonment. If you believe life is dangerous, you'll see threat in every shadow. But when you begin to shift the inner movie, when you start believing in possibility, beauty, peace, those elements begin to appear around you. Not because the external world changed first, but because you changed, and your experience rearranged to reflect it. This isn't magic. It's perception. It's how your nervous system filters experience. It's how your brain fills in gaps. It's how emotion informs memory and memory informs meaning. It's also resonance, vibration, alignment, the energetic language of the universe. Because what you radiate, you attract. What you carry, you amplify. What you believe, you invite. Not always with precision, but always with presence, always with influence. And that makes you powerful, not in the way of domination, not in the way of control, but in the sacred way of co-creation. You are in a dance with existence. You step. It responds. You open. It flows. You retreat. It echoes that movement. And so every thought, every word, every choice is like casting a stone into a still lake. Ripples move outward. They touch things you cannot see. They affect the direction of your path in ways you won't always understand. And yet, there it is. The job that appears when you let go of fear. The relationship that deepens when you start loving yourself. The idea that arises in stillness when you stop chasing and start listening. That's not coincidence. That's co-creation. And the more conscious you become of it, the more deliberate you can be. You begin to choose your thoughts like seeds. You begin to speak as if your words are spells. You begin to walk as if the ground itself is listening, because it is. This reality is not deaf, it's alive. It mirrors your inner life with more accuracy than you realize. Not always instantly, but consistently, faithfully. And when you stop fighting the world and start shaping the energy you bring to it, you watch it shift. Not perfectly, not like a vending machine, but like a living organism responding to your presence. So ask yourself, what am I projecting? What story am I telling with my thoughts? What kind of world am I reinforcing with my focus? Because your focus is fuel. Whatever you water grows. If you dwell on betrayal, you'll find reasons not to trust. If you expect disappointment, you'll see it in everyone's face. But if you begin to look for beauty, you'll find it in the smallest places. If you speak gratitude, you'll attract more to be grateful for. And if you move from presence, your path will start to feel like a sacred unfolding, rather than a constant struggle. This isn't about pretending, it's about perceiving with clarity. It's about realizing that your thoughts are not private. They echo, they shape your chemistry, they alter your actions, they form the tone of your life, and that tone is contagious. So when you start tuning that tone, through stillness, intention, and awareness, you create resonance, not just inside yourself, but in the people around you, in the spaces you enter, in the opportunities that find you. You walk differently when you know you're shaping the scene with every step, not in a fearful way, not like pressure, but like reverence. You are painting reality with your vibration. You are infusing the dream with your frequency, and the dream listens, not to your words, to your energy. So if you want peace, become peaceful. If you want love, become loving. If you want truth, become honest with yourself. Because the world you see is not something that happens to you. It's something that reflects you. And you have far more say in that reflection than you were ever taught. This doesn't mean you control everything, you don't. But you influence it deeply, profoundly. You are not the architect of the entire dream, but you are a brush in the hand of something sacred. And that sacredness flows through you, through your attention, through your alignment, through your surrender. So stop waiting for the world to change. Let the change begin with how you see it. Let it begin with the energy you bring to the moment. Let it begin with how you meet your own thoughts. Because when you shift your inner world, the outer world responds. It always has. And now you're awake enough to notice. You're not a passive passenger in this life. You are a co-creator of reality. So choose your thoughts like they matter. Speak your truth like it shapes the ground beneath you, and move as if the universe is listening, because it is, and it always has been. There's a quiet ache in you, a longing, not for more money or more fame or more comfort. It's deeper than that. It's the longing for what's real, something you can trust completely, something that won't vanish when circumstances shift. Something solid beneath all this shifting ground. You've looked for it, in people, in purpose, in books and beliefs. You've reached for it in careers, in relationships, in spiritual systems. You've chased it in moments of awe and in hours of meditation. And maybe, just for a second, you thought you found it. That flash of meaning, that glimpse of clarity. But then, it faded. It shifted, it crumbled, or it just changed. And that ache returned, the silent pull, the desire to know, to feel, that something beneath all this is real, that this isn't just a dream, that you're not just a story floating through space. But what if that longing is the very evidence that something deeper is present? What if the longing itself is a compass? Not a flaw to fix, but a guide. Because here's the truth no one told you. Everything you've ever known has been experienced through the mind, every sight, every sound, every thought, every emotion, filtered through layers of perception, memory, belief. So how do you know what's real? You don't. Not in the way you think, not through certainty. Because even your certainty is felt through the fog of experience, even your doubts are shaped by thoughts you didn't choose. You're trying to find the real, using a mind that may be dreaming. A mind that invents stories, projects fears, filters data. A mind that can be convinced of anything if told the right way. So, where do you turn? What can you trust? Maybe not the thoughts. Maybe not the emotions. Maybe not the outer world that shifts like sand. But what about the awareness of it all? That which sees the longing. That which notices the doubt, that which observes the entire process, the reaching, the searching, the collapsing. That presence is not a belief, it's not a thought, it's not a temporary state, it's the constant, the stillness underneath the storm. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real you've been chasing, not something out there, not something you can point to and say, this proves it, but the undeniable fact of your own awareness, the knowing of experience, the aliveness that registers this moment right now. Because look, everything else can be questioned. Your memories are flawed. Your thoughts are shaped by conditioning. Your senses are filtered. But the fact that something is aware, that's not up for debate. That's the ground, and you've been standing on it all along. You just didn't recognize it. Because it's not loud. It doesn't demand your attention. It waits, silently, lovingly. While you search the outer world for truth, it waits for you to look within. Not into ideas, not into more seeking, but into the simple, spacious presence that sees it all. That presence is not something you need to become. It's what you already are. before the name, before the body, before the mind and its endless commentary. That presence was there, watching, being. You've mistaken the dream for the dreamer. You've confused the movie for the screen. But now, you're waking up. And as you wake up, the longing begins to shift. But because it's no longer driving you to chase shadows, now it points you home, back to the one who longs, not the character, but the consciousness, the stillness, the light. So, ask yourself, what is the one thing that's been with me through every experience, every joy, every heartbreak, every victory, every loss? Not the body, it's changed, not the personality, it's evolved, not the beliefs, they've crumbled and reformed, but this presence, this silent alert space that sees, this awareness that doesn't speak yet understands everything, that doesn't control yet holds everything. You can't see it, but without it, you couldn't see anything. You can't define it, but it's what allows for all definition. It is the quiet I am behind the noise of I am this or I am that. And it never left. It was with you as a child staring at the sky. It was with you in your darkest night. It was with you in the moments of ecstasy you thought were it. And it's with you now as you read these words. So maybe the real isn't something to find. Maybe it's something to remember, something to relax into, something so close, so intimate, that you've missed it in the search, like a fish searching for water, like a flame wondering where the heat is. You are already what you're longing for. You just believed you were something smaller. A character in a mind-made movie, a name chasing permanence. But you are the screen on which it all plays. You are the space the dream appears in. And the longing, that sacred ache, that's your invitation, not to seek harder, but to surrender deeper, to stop grasping at what changes and rest in what doesn't. The mind won't like this. It will say, that's too simple, it can't be that. But simplicity is where truth hides, not in complexity, not in elaborate concepts, but in what is. Undeniably, unshakably, this moment, right now, the awareness that holds it, that's your home, that's what's real. So breathe into that, feel it, not as an idea, but as direct experience. Notice the stillness beneath the thoughts, notice the presence behind the eyes, notice the watcher of the longing, and let it be enough. Let it reveal itself. Let it show you that the real isn't far away, it's here. It's always been here, and the only thing that ever needed to shift was your attention. If life is a dream, that doesn't make it meaningless, it makes it miraculous. You've been taught to believe that meaning must come from permanence, that what fades can't be trusted, that what shifts, what moves, what dances in and out of form is somehow less real than what stays. But what if the opposite is true? What if impermanence is the miracle? What if the fleeting nature of life, the way a sunrise lasts only a few minutes, the way a laugh dissolves into silence, the way someone you love can vanish from this world without warning, isn't proof of emptiness, but proof of magic? Dreams don't last, but they leave an impression. They move you. They stir something in you that lingers long after you wake. And life is no different. It comes, it goes, it flickers, it vanishes. And still, it means something. Still, it matters. Even if it can't be held forever. Even if it's built from stardust and silence. Even if every single part of it is in motion. There's a beauty in that. A softness, a reverence, because nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is owed. Every breath is a gift. Every sunrise is a painting that will never be repeated. Every moment of connection, every glance of love, every shared silence, they are all firsts and lasts at once. And that makes them sacred. That makes this dream more beautiful than any permanence ever could. You see, the mind wants control. It wants to nail things down. It wants labels. It wants guarantees. But the heart, the soul, they understand the dream. They understand that this is a dance, not a destination, that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. And the dream of life, with all its beauty and chaos, joy and sorrow, is your canvas. You're not here to conquer it, you're here to feel it, to move with it, to let it shape you, to allow yourself to be touched by its colors, its sounds, its sensations, even the ones that hurt, even the ones that leave scars. Because pain, too, has its own beauty. It cracks you open. It reveals the tenderness beneath the armor. It humbles you. It shows you what matters. And joy is no less real just because it fades. In fact, it's more powerful because it fades. Because it teaches you presence. It invites you to pay attention. It says, look, this moment will never come again. Be here for it. And when you're fully here, you begin to see the dream for what it truly is, not an illusion to escape, but a miracle to embrace. Because, yes, it's a dream, but it's a dream happening in awareness, a dream infused with consciousness, a dream where love is possible, where laughter is real, where you can taste, touch, create, dance, cry, and be. And none of that is meaningless, none of that is empty, it's all part of the expression. The dream isn't the problem. Forgetting you're dreaming, that's the problem. Thinking the characters are all that matter, believing the story is your identity, clinging to outcomes like they define your worth. That's where the suffering lives. But when you remember, when you wake up within the dream, everything changes. You no longer fear its transience. You no longer need it to go your way. You can love without possession, give without expectation, feel without drowning. Because you're not trying to escape the dream, you're flowing with it. You're lucid now. You know this moment is passing, and you meet it with open arms. You know the joy will end, and you savor it fully. You know the pain will soften, and you breathe through it without resistance. This is the beauty of the dream. Its fragility is its grace. Its unpredictability is its brilliance. Because if it were permanent, if it never changed, it would become lifeless. It would lose its edge, its sparkle, its soul. But because it shifts, because it moves, it stays alive. And so do you. You are not meant to be fixed. You are not meant to be the same person tomorrow that you were yesterday. You are a living dream, breathing, shaping, becoming. Every moment is an invitation to awaken, to soften, to marvel. And even when things fall apart, even when it feels like the dream has turned to nightmare, there is still a thread of beauty running through it. Maybe not in the moment, but in the tenderness it awakens, in the clarity it eventually brings, in the depth it carves into your being. You are being sculpted by the dream, not punished, shaped, sharpened. And when you stop resisting it, when you stop trying to make the dream obey your plans, you begin to feel something new, a quiet trust, a knowing that whatever happens you will remain. Not the story, not the form, but the awareness holding it all. And that awareness, that's the eternal part. That's the part that doesn't fade, that doesn't break, that doesn't die. So yes, the dream comes and goes, but the dreamer remains, you remain, and in that awareness, the dream becomes a gift, not something to control, something to witness, something to enjoy, something to weep through, something to sing with, something to wake up inside of. So take a moment right now. Feel your breath. Notice the light around you. Feel the presence in your chest, the beating heart, the aliveness, and ask yourself, if this is a dream, what a stunning dream it is. What a strange, beautiful, wild, imperfect, radiant miracle. You don't need to wake from it. You need to wake within it. Because when you do, every moment becomes sacred. Every face becomes divine. Every word becomes a prayer. Every step becomes a dance. And you become the lucid dreamer, awake, aware, alive, and endlessly grateful for this fleeting, flickering, breathtaking dream of life. You've spent most of your life thinking you're the character, the one with the name, the face, the past. You've thought, this is me, this body, this voice, this personality. But what if that's not the truth? What if that's just the costume, just the mask worn inside the dream? Because here's what you've never fully been told. You're not the character. You're not the story. You're not even the dream body that moves through this waking world. You are the dreamer, the field in which all of it happens, the still presence behind every word, every moment, every choice, the one watching the entire show unfold. And that changes everything. Because the character can be scared, it can suffer, it can fall and rise and struggle and soar. But you are the space it all happens within. You are not inside the dream is inside you. This body, temporary. This name, temporary. This storyline, temporary. But the awareness watching it all, timeless, unchanging, silent, alive. It doesn't age. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It holds. It contains. It sees. And when you start resting in that awareness, not trying to grasp it, not trying to intellectualize it, but actually feeling it, you begin to wake up within the dream. You realize everything you thought you were is just a layer of identity, a layer of conditioning, a layer of memory, like clothes you've been wearing so long you forgot you could take them off. But underneath, naked awareness, open, boundless, free. The character lives inside time. But you, the dreamer, exists outside it. You're not moving through time. Time moves through you. Like scenes on a screen, moments on a reel. You're the unmoving light that illuminates them all. Think about it. In dreams, you become a different person. You have a different body, a different history, a different purpose. And yet, you're still you. Not the character, but the dreamer behind it, the one who witnesses it all, even if you forget while dreaming. And when you wake, you say, that was a dream. But are you so sure this isn't? Not a fake, not meaningless, but a dream in the deepest spiritual sense, a projection of consciousness, a temporary play of form in formless awareness. That doesn't make it less sacred, it makes it more so. Because now you see, it's not permanent, it's art, it's theater, it's poetry, and you are not trapped in it. You are the one breathing it into being, moment by moment, scene by scene. You are not separate from the dream, you are the dream, and you are the dreamer. Both the field and the form, the silence and the sound. You think you're looking out from behind your eyes, but really the eyes are appearing in you. You think your thoughts are something you produce, but they're arising in the space of awareness like ripples in water. And when you stop trying to grasp the dream, when you stop trying to own it, fix it, control it, you fall back into what you really are, the witness, the container, the dreamer. And in that shift, something else happens. The fear begins to dissolve. Because fear belongs to the character, to the one who's trying to survive, to hold on, to win. But the dreamer doesn't fear. The dreamer watches. It embraces every scene. It weeps with the sorrow, laughs with the joy. But it never forgets its dreaming. So nothing sticks, nothing poisons the core, nothing shakes the foundation. Because the foundation is unshakable. That's what you are. Unshakable awareness. The dream may be wild, it may be beautiful, it may be brutal, but the dreamer is steady, still, free, and that freedom isn't earned, it's remembered. You don't have to reach some level of success to find it, you don't have to wait for the pain to end, you don't even have to finish healing, you just have to stop identifying with the mask. Let the character move, let the story unfold. But know, deep in your being, that you are not the movement, you are the field it moves through. When a wave rises, you feel it. When a storm hits, you experience it. But you're not the wave, you're the ocean, you hold it all. This is the real awakening, not escaping the dream, but becoming lucid within it. Not abandoning your life, but living it as a sacred play, fully present, fully awake, knowing that the form is temporary but the essence is eternal. And when you walk through life as the dreamer, you don't need the story to go your way. You don't need every scene to be joyful. You don't need to grip outcomes with white knuckles. Because you're no longer measuring your worth by what happens. You're no longer defining yourself by roles and labels. You know who you are. You are the one who sees, the one who allows, the one who is. So now, even in the middle of chaos, you're grounded. Even in uncertainty, you're clear. Because you're not trying to be the character anymore. You're letting the character be what it is. A fluid expression, a momentary reflection, a wave in the dream. And you are the dreamer. Rest in that. Let it sink in, not as an idea, but as a knowing. Feel the spaciousness of it, the relief, the stillness. This is your home. This has always been your home. You just forgot. But now, you remember. You're not in the dream is in you. There's a moment just before you fall asleep, when everything slows. The story of your day begins to dissolve. The roles you played, worker, friend, parent, partner, fade into the background. Your worries soften. Your thoughts, once racing, begin to lose their grip. And in that space, right before the dream begins, something remains. It's not a thought. It's not a voice. It's not an image. It's awareness, pure, silent, alive, still there, even as the mind lets go. And then it happens again when you wake up. Before your name returns, before your memories flood in, before the I tightens its grip again. There's just presence, just this quiet hum of being, the soft glow of existing, without identity, without narrative. It doesn't last long, because the mind rushes in. It says, this is who you are, this is your life, these are your problems, but for a brief, sacred moment you're free. You're not thinking, you're not remembering, you're simply here. And that space, that stillness, that's not emptiness. That's you, the real you, the one that doesn't come and go, the one that's always been here, watching. It's easy to miss, because it doesn't shout, it doesn't flash, it doesn't demand attention, it just is. Like the sky behind the clouds, like the silence between the notes in a song, always present, always steady, but covered by the noise of thought. You see, the mind is loud. It wants to narrate everything. It wants to explain, label, judge, compare. It's been conditioned to believe that thinking equals being. But you are not your thoughts. You are the space they move through. You are the pause between the words. You are the silence between the inhale and the exhale. That space, subtle, ungraspable, is your true nature. And the more you tune into it, the more you remember. You remember what you are beneath the doing. You remember that peace isn't something you earn. It's something you uncover, because it's already there, beneath the noise. And this space between thoughts, it's not empty space, it's alive, it's intelligent, it's presence, itself. It holds every thought without clinging, every emotion without judgment, every sensation without resistance. It is the quiet witness, not passive but deeply aware, not distant but utterly intimate. It doesn't try to fix, it doesn't try to improve, it just holds. And you've felt it, in those quiet moments when the world pauses, when you stare at the sky and forget your story, when you sit in stillness and something inside sighs in relief, when you're watching the wind move the trees and your mind goes silent, not because you forced it, but because beauty took over. That's the space. That's the gap between thoughts. And it's not something far away, it's here, right now, underneath this sentence, before your next thought, in the stillness, behind your eyes. And the more you notice it, the more it opens, the more it reveals itself not as a concept but as a presence. You don't have to get there, you don't have to fight your way in, you just have to notice the noticing. Become aware of the awareness, like turning your attention inward, gently, like placing a feather on water, not to grasp, just to recognize, to remember, that you've always been the space. You've never been the storm. Thoughts come and go, emotions come and go, but the awareness that sees them, That never moves. That's home. That's the center you've been looking for in the outer world. That's the quiet joy that doesn't depend on circumstances. That's the peace that doesn't need perfect conditions, because it's not made of conditions. It's made of presence. So what does this look like in your life? It looks like catching the space between reactions. It looks like breathing before speaking. It looks like watching a thought rise and instead of grabbing it, letting it pass like a cloud. It's subtle, but it's powerful. It's the difference between living on autopilot and living awake. Because in the space between thoughts, you're not being pulled by past or future. You're not tangled in the story. You're resting in now. And now is where life actually happened. Not yesterday, not tomorrow. Here, now. The mind resists this. It thinks silence is boring. It's been trained to chase stimulation, drama, distraction. But the more you sit in this space, the more you realize this is where depth lives. This is where truth begins. Not in the noise, but in the stillness behind it. That's why great insights come in silence. Why healing begins when thinking stops. Why creativity blooms when the mind takes a breath. Because the space is intelligence itself. It's not the absence of life. It's the foundation of it. It's not lifeless, it's radiant. And when you return to it, you return to your essence. You stop trying to be something. You stop trying to become. You just are. And that is enough. So next time you feel overwhelmed, pause. Close your eyes. Notice the breath. And then notice the space between the breaths. The moment where nothing is happening, where the mind isn't speaking, where everything is still. Rest there, even for a second, and watch what happens. The tension softens. The fear dissolves. The identity loosens, not because you did anything, but because you returned to what you are, the space, the awareness, the silence between thoughts. This is not about rejecting thinking. It's about seeing clearly that you are not the thinker. You are the awareness of thinking. You are the one who sees the thought arise, play out, and fade. And in that seeing, you're free. Because you don't have to believe every thought. You don't have to chase every feeling. You can rest in the space and let everything else move around you like weather. You are not the storm. You are the sky. You are not the words. You are the silence that gives them meaning. You are not the doing. You are the being that allows it all. And once you taste this, even briefly, you never forget. You may lose sight of it, you may get swept up in the story again, but part of you always remembers the stillness, the peace, the home between thoughts. And when life gets loud, you'll know where to return, not to fix, not to escape, but to remember, to rest, to reconnect with the truth that's never left you. You are the space between thoughts. You are the stillness before the story. You are the awareness that watches the dream. And that is enough. What if the one who's been watching your entire life isn't you at all? What if the presence behind your eyes, the awareness that has seen every high and low, every thought and feeling, every success and heartbreak, isn't personal? Not your soul, not your consciousness, not your private little inner voice, but something deeper, something vaster, something impersonal that's been flowing through you all along. You see, you've believed that the I inside, the voice that watches, that tracks, that remembers, that this is you, your truest self, the most intimate core of your identity. But what if even that is just another layer? What if the real watcher is not part of your personality, not a product of your memories or your name, not even something located inside you? Imagine this. You're sitting quietly, eyes closed, a thought arises. I should check my phone. Another thought follows. No, I'm meditating. And somewhere in the background, something sees both thoughts. Something notices the desire and the resistance. It doesn't react, it just sees. That seeing, that observing. It's always there. Even when you're asleep. Even when the thoughts go quiet. Even when you lose yourself in a movie or a conversation or a memory. It's there, like the silent background hum of existence. But what is it? Is it part of you? Is it yours? Or is it something else entirely? Here's where things get strange. Because when you go looking for the watcher, really looking, you can't find it. You can't see it. You can't define it. You can't point and say, there it is. And yet, it's undeniably present. It's what allows you to be aware of anything, of thoughts, of emotions, of sensations. So you might think, well, I'm the one doing the watching, but pause for a second. Can you stop the watching? Can you turn it off? Can you make awareness go away? No, silence. The awareness remains. Which begs the question, if you can't control it, if you can't define it, if you can't even find it as an object, is it really you? Or is it something more universal, like light shining through a window? The window doesn't produce the light, it simply allows it through. You might think of your mind, your body, your nervous system as the window, and awareness? That's the light. Not owned, not created, just appearing through the form, moving through your particular lens, but not limited to it. You are not the source, you are the vessel, and suddenly everything shifts. Because now the sense of me is no longer the center of everything. Now you're just a channel, a character in the dream, a movement in the field, not the field itself, not the source, just an appearance in it. And that can feel unsettling, because we're conditioned to believe we're the subject, that life revolves around our perception, that the I behind the eyes is the one in charge. But when you investigate that I, it starts to disappear. You realize it's not a thing, it's a process, a story being told, a narrative running through your mind. But the awareness? The awareness is something else. It doesn't speak, it doesn't think, it doesn't choose, it just witnesses. And not just for you, it witnesses through everyone, every form, every mind, every nervous system, the same light shining through different lenses, the same ocean expressing itself as different waves. So what does this mean for you? It means the you you've been protecting, defending, glorifying, shaming might not be who you are. It means you are not the thinker. You are not the feeler. You are not the experiencer. You are the space in which all of that happens. And that space is not private. It's not yours. It's not contained by a body. It's not shaped by memory. It's universal, infinite, free. So when you say, I'm aware, what you're really saying is awareness is happening here, but the I isn't doing it. It's being done, just like your heart beats without your effort, just like breath rises and falls. Awareness simply is, and you're not its owner. You're its expression. You are not the center of perception. Perception is happening, and you are just one of the characters it flows through. A ripple in the stream. Not the source, not the destination. Just a moment in the field of consciousness. And strangely, that's not depressing, it's liberating. Because now everything softens. There's no identity to protect, no mask to wear, no self-imes to maintain. You can just be. Let life live itself through you. Let awareness move through this body, this voice, this moment. You become a flute and awareness plays the song. You become the sky and awareness paints the clouds. You become the witness, not as a personal achievement, but as a recognition, a surrender. And when you rest in that, something opens, a deeper peace, a wider compassion, a humility that doesn't shrink but expands. Because now, you're not trying to be the main character. You're part of the whole. You're the dance itself. And there's no pressure to control it. There's no fear of getting it wrong. Because you're not in charge. You're not the doer. You're the watched. The movement, the play, and the real watcher? It's untouched, unmoved, unbound. It watches your joy without attachment. It watches your sorrow without judgment. It watches the rise and fall of every thought, like clouds passing through an infinite sky. And when you stop trying to be the watcher, when you let go of needing to possess it, you fall into it, not as an idea, as direct experience. You are it, and yet you are also not it. You are both wave and ocean, both breath and air, both form and formless, and that paradox is the doorway to awakening. So next time you sit in stillness, don't try to be aware, don't try to find the watcher, just notice that awareness is already here, already watching, already holding everything, not because of you, but through you. And in that noticing you may find the greatest peace you've ever known, not because you found yourself, but because you let go of needing to, and what remained? was everything. Our thoughts are like clouds. They come and go. They shift shape. Some drift by like gentle breezes, barely noticed. Others storm through like thunderheads, loud, dark, overwhelming. They may be heavy with emotion or light with fantasy, random, repeating, deep or shallow. But no matter what kind of clouds pass through, the sky never changes. It doesn't react. It doesn't resist. It doesn't chase. It just holds, still, vast, silent. And that is what you are. You are not the thoughts. You are not the clouds. You are not the clouds. You are the sky. You are the open field in which thoughts appear, play, and dissolve. You've spent most of your life believing you are the clouds. When thoughts of fear arise, you say, I'm afraid. When thoughts of failure loop, you say, I'm not enough. When thoughts of judgment appear, you believe they define you. But the thoughts are not the truth. They're weather. They're movement. They're momentary expressions in consciousness, and they are not you. They happen in you. They are seen by you. But they do not own you. They do not define you, unless you grab hold and say, this is mine. But what if you didn't? What if you let thoughts move the way the wind moves? What if you watched them come and go without attaching, without resisting, without fighting? Because here's the truth. Thoughts are not solid. They are not stable. They are not even original. Most of them are recycled from past experiences, culture, memory, and fear. You didn't invent them. You inherited them. And most of them are echoes, not intentions. They are noise, not signal. So why do you give them so much power? Why do you believe the storm when the sky remains untouched? Because you forgot what you are. You got caught in the content and lost touch with the context. You focused on the words and forgot the silence that holds them. You got hypnotized by the movement and forgot the stillness underneath. But now, you're remembering. Now you're stepping back, and as you do, something shifts. The thoughts may still come, they probably will, but they don't hook you the same way. They don't pull you under like they used to. Because now you see them for what they are. Clouds. Just clouds. Not personal, not proof. Passing weather. And you are the sky. You are the space in which the thoughts move. And that space is never broken, never stained, never threatened. When a thundercloud rolls through the sky doesn't panic. When rain falls, the sky doesn't try to fix it. It allows, it holds, it remains. And so can you. You can let thoughts move without turning them into your identity. You can feel an emotion rise without clinging or pushing it away. You can sit in the storm and know, this will pass. But I remain. This isn't spiritual bypassing. This isn't denial, this is deep truth. Because when you know you're the sky, you can face any weather. You don't have to escape. You don't have to control. You don't have to make every cloud disappear. You just have to rest in what doesn't change. The witnessing awareness, the open field, the infinite blue behind the storm, that is your home. That is what's always been with you. It was there when you were a child, long before you could name your thoughts. It's there now, beneath the noise. It will be there the moment before you sleep, and the moment after you wake. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to deserve it. You don't even have to understand it. You just have to remember. To pause, to notice, to let the next thought come and not follow it. To let the emotion rise and not wrap yourself in it. To become the witness, not by trying, but by relaxing. You don't find the sky by chasing the clouds. You find it by letting go. By looking beyond the movement and seeing what holds it all. That seeing is always here. That space is always waiting. And it is more peaceful than anything the mind can manufacture. Because it isn't made. It simply is. It's what's left when the thinking stops. When the striving ends. You are not your past. You are not the voice in your head saying you'll never be enough. That's just weather. That's just movement. And all movement passes. But you remain. You watch the rain fall. You feel the thunder roll. But you know, it's just clouds. They can't hurt the sky. They can't erase the open space. And the more you rest in that space, the less you fear the weather. You begin to trust the rhythm. You begin to let life live itself through you, without needing to control the storm, because now you're not caught in it. You're watching, with kindness, with patience, with wisdom. You stop reacting, you start responding, not from panic, but from presence. Because presence doesn't panic. Presence knows the storm is temporary. Presence knows the sun is always behind the clouds. And you are that presence, that sky, that openness. And there is so much freedom in that knowing, so much peace, so much power, because now you don't have to fix every thought. You don't have to solve every emotion. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to see, and let seeing be enough. Let awareness be enough. Let the sky hold the weather, and know in your heart that you are that sky, always, already, now. You try to find the one behind the thoughts, the thinker, the inner self, the observer who remembers, decides and sees it all. You turn inward, maybe during meditation, maybe in the quiet between distractions, and you ask, who's watching all this? And at first it seems obvious. I am, you say. Of course. But then you pause and look again, and something strange begins to happen. You expect to find some core identity, some fixed center, but instead what you find is just more thoughts, more sensations, more memories. A flicker of emotion, the echo of a voice saying, it's me, but nothing solid. Nothing stable, nothing that stays, like trying to catch a shadow in your hands, like chasing a reflection across water. Every time you get close to the one who watches, it disappears, and you realize all you've ever seen are appearances in awareness, but never the awareness itself, never the seer, only the seen. And so you try again. You look behind the thoughts, behind the emotions, behind the body, but again it slips through your fingers. Not because it's hiding, but because it was never an object to begin with. You see, the witness, the one you think you are, is not something you can find, because it's not a thing. It has no shape, no color, no sound, it has no edges, no form, no image. It cannot be located, it cannot be grasped, and yet it sees everything. It is always here, always aware, like space, open, boundless, invisible, yet holding everything that happens. You've spent your life looking for yourself, trying to define it, trying to pin it down. I am this body, I am these thoughts, I am this past. But with each layer you peel back, what you find is just more content, never the container. You find the clouds, but not the sky. You find the movie, but not the screen. And yet, something knows the search is happening. Something sees the thoughts arise, the breath move, the attention shift. And that is the witness. But it's not a witness in the way the mind understands. It's not separate, it's not someone watching from the outside. It's the awareness within everything, not watching you, but as you. Not apart from the experience, but the very space of experience itself. And this is why you can't find it. Because the witness is what's looking. The flashlight can't shine on itself. The eye can't turn to see its own seeing. So the harder you try to find the witness, the further away it seems. But not because it's absent, because it's too close, too intimate. It's the one thing that's always been here, always away, always aware, even when the thoughts are chaotic, even when the emotions are overwhelming, even when the story of me takes center stage. The witness is there, still, silent, unmoving. And when you stop trying to find it like an object and simply rest as it, something shifts. Suddenly you don't feel the need to define, to describe, to hold on, because the awareness is enough. You don't need a solid self. You don't need to say, this is me. You can simply be, empty, open, present. And that's the paradox. The more you chase the I, the more it vanishes. The more you let go, the more you are, not as a person, but as presence, as space, as knowing without form. You might ask, but isn't there someone behind the eyes? Yes and no. There's awareness. There's presence, but no one you can name, no identity you can hold, just the flow of seeing, the field of knowing, without a center, without a boundary, just this. And that might feel unsettling at first, because we're so used to being someone, so used to saying, "This is who I am." But when that falls away, when the story collapses, there's a strange freedom, a lightness, because now you're not bound by identity. You're not trapped in a role. You're not limited to a thought about yourself. You are the spacious field in which the thoughts come and go. You are the presence in which the body rises and falls. You are the formless awareness in which all form appears. And that awareness doesn't need a name, it doesn't need a shape, it doesn't need a self. It simply is. So if you still feel the urge to search, pause. Notice who's searching, not the mind's answer, not the thought that says, "I'm the seeking," but the raw, wordless awareness that knows the seeking is happening. That is the witness, and it cannot be lost, because it was never separate. It was never other. It's not a watcher in the sky, it's the sky itself. Watching not from outside, but from within. As everything. So rest there, not in thought, not in identity, but in the ungraspable openness of being, the place where nothing is fixed and nothing is missing, the place where the question dissolves, where the seeker vanishes, where only presence remains. And in that presence, there is no one behind the eyes, just seeing, no one behind the thoughts, just knowing, no one behind the breath, just being. And somehow that is more intimate than anything you've ever called me, because it doesn't end, it doesn't fracture, it doesn't defend, it just is. That's the unfindable witness. Always here, always aware, and never needing to be found, because it was never lost. What if the awareness behind your eyes isn't just yours? What if the silent presence watching your life unfold, the one that hears your thoughts, feels your sensations, and knows your experience, isn't something personal at all? What if it's the same awareness looking through every pair of eyes? You've been taught to believe consciousness is private, that it belongs to you, that your awareness is something generated inside your skull, your own little candle burning in a room of separate lights. But what if it's not like that? What if it's more like one sun shining through countless windows, each window shaped differently, some stained with memory, some fogged with trauma, some crystal clear, but all of them touched by the same light. That light is awareness, and it doesn't belong to anyone, because it isn't a thing, it's not a product of your brain, it's not contained in your body, it's not owned, it's shared, not divided, not separate, just appearing through different lenses. Like water taking the shape of whatever cup it fills. Like electricity powering different devices but always the same current. That means that the you who is aware right now, who is hearing these words, sensing this moment, is not fundamentally different from the you in another body across the world. Different story, yes, different form, yes, but the same essence, the same witnessing field, the same presence. It's one consciousness, moving through many expressions. And that realization changes everything. Because suddenly you're not isolated anymore. You're not a separate self locked in a lonely head. You are the field of awareness itself. Not an individual light, but the light that is. And this awareness? It doesn't have opinions. It doesn't carry identity. It doesn't judge, cling, or compare. It simply sees, purely, clearly, equally. It sees you, it sees them, it sees everything, without preference. That's why when you look into someone's eyes and feel something beyond words, you're not imagining it, you're not projecting, you're recognizing. You're feeling the truth that the same awareness is looking back. Awareness, seeing itself, and in that moment the illusion of separation begins to dissolve, because separation lives in the mind, in thought, in belief, but not in awareness. Awareness is non-dual. It doesn't divide reality into subject and object. It holds both. It is both. It sees the world and the one seeing it. It knows your thoughts and the space those thoughts arise in, and it knows you, not as an identity, but as itself. So when you quiet your mind, when you stop labeling, when you stop saying I am this or they are that, what remains? Just presence, just awareness, just the field of being. And in that field there is no mine and yours, there is no self and other, there is only one seeing, or knowing, one being. The same being that watched the stars form, the same being that breathes the trees, the same being that dances through every life, every creature, every moment. It's not distant, it's not abstract, it's right here, closer than thought, more intimate than emotion. It's what makes this moment possible. And it never left. It never changed. It was here before your name, it will be here after your last thought. It is what remains. So when you say, I am aware, what you're really saying is, awareness is happening through this form, but not because of it. You don't own awareness, you are it, and so is everyone else. The differences are on the surface, the bodies, the behaviors, the histories, but at the core, one awareness, one light, many faces. This is why compassion becomes effortless when you wake up to this truth. Because now when someone suffers, you don't see a stranger, you see yourself. You see your own awareness wrapped in different circumstances, a different costume, but the same source. And love flows naturally, not as a virtue, but as recognition, not as a duty, but as resonance. You see another's joy, and it fills your heart. You see another's pain, and it softens your gaze. Because you're not trying to love them. You are them. In essence, in being, you are the same light, and suddenly spirituality is no longer a path you walk alone. It's a mirror. It's a reunion. It's a remembering that you never needed to become enlightened, because enlightenment was already looking through your eyes. It was never missing. You just forgot to notice. You got caught up in the mask, the name, the story. But now you see, the actor is not the role, the awareness is not the mind, and the light doesn't care what shape the window is. It just shines, through everyone, through everything. So what does this mean for your daily life? It means the boundaries begin to blur, not in a way that makes you lose yourself, but in a way that frees you from the illusion of separation. You begin to treat others not based on their story, but based on the awareness you recognize in them. You begin to meet life not with fear, but with awe, because now every face is a reflection, every moment is sacred, every breath is shared, not just conceptually, but deeply, experientially. You start to live from awareness not just as a witness, but as the field that includes all. And in that inclusion something remarkable happens. The fear begins to fade. The defenses soften. The craving for control begins to dissolve. Because now you're not fighting to protect your tiny self. You're flowing as the infinite. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to be anyone. You are already what you're looking for. You are the awareness behind the search. And that awareness, it was never broken, never separate, never yours alone. It is us. It is this. It is now. You've spent your whole life becoming someone, a name, a personality, a set of preferences, traits, and memories. You've built an image of yourself, layer by layer, until it felt solid, real. But have you ever stopped to ask, where did all of this come from? Who shaped the you believe in so deeply? Was it truly born from some deep inner truth? Or was it borrowed, assembled, constructed? Look closely. Your accent, you inherited it. The way you carry yourself, the way you respond to conflict, even the things you find funny, all shaped by the people and places you were raised in. Your beliefs, taught. Your values, modeled. Your fears, conditioned. Even your dreams. Were they planted before you even had the words to question them? From your earliest breath, you were absorbing, a sponge soaking up language, emotion, expectation. Before you could walk, you were learning what was acceptable. Before you could think critically, you were being praised for certain behaviors and discouraged from others. And slowly a pattern formed, a persona. You learned to play roles, to smile when it was expected, to hide what was unwelcome, to speak in ways that earned approval and avoid those that triggered rejection. And all of that became you. But what if it's not? What if your self is more costume than core? What if it's a mask, crafted over time from the ideas of others? Not false, just borrowed, and worn for so long you forgot you were wearing it. You see, identity feels real because it's familiar, because it's been practiced, rehearsed, rewarded. But just because something is familiar doesn't make it true. Just because you've worn the mask for decades doesn't mean it's your face, and the longer you look, the more the cracks begin to show. Have you ever had a moment, alone in silence, where all the labels fell away, where you forgot your job, your gender, your history, and just were? No story, no past, just presence. Still, aware, alive. That was you. Before the world told you who to be, that was the truth peeking through the mask. But most days, the mask feels too tight to remove. It clings, because you've built your life around it. You've defended it, protected it, proved it. You've said, "This is just who I am," so many times that it feels non-negotiable. But look again, are your opinions truly yours? Or were they inherited from your family, your culture, your newsfeed? Is your personality fixed, or has it shifted depending on who you're with? Have you ever felt like a different person around different people, like you wore different versions of you for different audiences? That's the mask, shifting, adapting, surviving. You're not being fake, you're being conditioned. You learned what self worked best in which setting, which mask earned love, which one avoided pain. But under all of them is something deeper, something untouched, something you don't need to invent, because it was never lost, only covered. That deeper self isn't defined by traits. It's not about being introverted or extroverted, kind or clever. It's not even about spiritual or awakened. It's beyond role, beyond image, beyond story. It's the you that sees the mask, the awareness that knows, this isn't all I am. And the moment you recognize that, something shifts. You begin to soften, to let go, to loosen your grip on the idea of who you're supposed to be. You stop performing, you start being. And being is effortless, because it's not based on memory. It's not shaped by expectation. It's not trying to become, it already is. Pure presence, silent, alert, grounded. And that presence? It's been with you all along. It watched your first heartbreak. It saw your biggest triumphs. It sat with you in your darkest moments. Not judging, not defining, just holding. And it will be there when the story ends, when the mask finally drops for good. But you don't have to wait until the end. You can begin removing it now, not all at once, not with force, but gently, curiously, with love. Ask yourself, who am I when I stop trying to be liked? Who am I when I'm not trying to impress? Who am I in the silence, when there's no one watching? That's where the real begins, and that's where freedom lives. Because the mask is heavy, it requires maintenance, performance, defense. But the real you, the one beneath, doesn't need to be explained, doesn't need to be accepted. It just needs to be seen by you. And yes, it can be scary. Letting go of identity can feel like death, because in a way it is, the death of the false, the unraveling of the imagined. But what dies isn't real, it's the costume, the construct, and what remains is peace, clarity, presence. You stop trying to be someone, you just are. And paradoxically, that's when the most authentic version of you begins to shine, not from effort, but from release. You laugh more, you care less about approval, you speak with less filter but more heart. You listen not to respond but to connect. You become softer, truer, lighter. Because now you're living from the inside out, not as a reaction to conditioning, but as an expression of presence. And the world feels different, not because it changed, but because you did. You're no longer trapped in the maze of persona. You're no longer rehearsing your role. You're breathing, alive, real. So take a moment. Feel the mask. Notice where you still cling, not to judge, but to bring awareness. And slowly, gently, let it fall away. Not because the mask is bad, but because it's not you. You are not your story. You are not your conditioning. You are not your mask. You are the one who sees it, the one who was here before the world told you who to be. And that one was never broken. Never too much, never not enough. That one is whole. Now, always. You think your thoughts are yours. You feel your preferences, your opinions, your values, your tastes belong to you. But pause. Ask yourself, where did they come from? The music you love, the food you crave, the political stance you defend, the beliefs you call truth. Did you choose them? Or did they arrive, slowly, subtly, before you even knew what choosing meant? You were born into a world already ready believing, drawing lines between right and wrong, sacred and profane, worthy and worthless. You didn't enter the world neutral, you entered absorbing. And long before you could speak, you were learning. Through glances, through tone, through praise and punishment, through the look in a parent's eyes when you did something right, through the quiet withdrawal when you did something wrong. It wasn't personal, it wasn't malicious, it was conditioning, it was culture sculpting you without asking. It was language shaping your mind before your mind even knew itself. Your likes traced back to early safety, your fears grown in the shadows of what was forbidden or shamed, your roles modeled after the adults around you, absorbed through mimicry, practice and survival. You didn't choose to be polite or rebellious. You didn't decide to be anxious or confident. You adapted. You shaped yourself around the environment you were given, because that's what humans do. You're wired to survive, to connect, to belong, and to belong you had to fit in. So you did. You listened. You learned. And slowly, layer by layer, you built a personality. But not out of freedom, out of necessity. You were constructing a self to earn love, avoid pain, and make sense of a chaotic world. And this self, it became familiar, comfortable, automatic. But was it true? Was it you? Or was it the result of 1,000 tiny choices you never knew you were making? The truth is, you've been conditioned. We all have. By family, by society, by media, by history. And most of that conditioning was invisible. It arrived not as commands, but as assumptions. Not as laws, but as just the way things are. You didn't question it, because it was the water you swam in. It shaped the way you see the world, the way you see yourself, and most powerfully, the way you don't even think to question certain things. But now, you are questioning. You're waking up. You're asking, what if my beliefs aren't mine? What if the self I've built is only one version, designed to survive, not necessarily to thrive? That question is powerful. It opens a door. Because once you see your conditioning, you no longer have to be ruled by it. You can observe it, explore it, disentangle from it. You can start to ask, what feels true, not just familiar? What feels alive, not just acceptable? What do I know, not because someone told me, but because I've seen it in silence, in presence, in direct experience? This is where freedom begins, not by throwing away your conditioning, but by seeing it clearly, with compassion, with curiosity, and with courage. Because make no mistake, it takes courage to unlearn, to question what you've always taken for granted, to admit, maybe this belief was planted, maybe this fear was inherited, maybe this version of me isn't the final one. You don't have to destroy your past. You don't have to hate your upbringing. You don't even have to reject your culture. But you do have to reclaim your awareness. You have to become conscious of what's been unconscious, to bring light to the inherited script, to realize I am not obligated to keep wearing the masks I was handed. I can choose again. And choosing again doesn't mean becoming someone new. It means uncovering the truth that was buried underneath the programming. It means remembering what was always yours before the world told you who to be. It means noticing the space between the thoughts, the place where conditioning hasn't reached. That space is still untouched, still pure, still waiting. And it's not about blaming, it's not about shame, it's about awakening. Because now you can choose, now you can ask, do I really want this belief? Is this value aligned with who I am now, or who I was told to be? Is this habit a reflection of my truth, or just a repeated pattern from the past? And when the answer is no, you don't have to fight it. You can just drop it, let it go, gently, lovingly, and step into something truer, something freer, something you. You're not bound to your conditioning. It may have shaped you, but it doesn't define you. You are not your past. You are not your programming. You are awareness. And awareness is spacious. It can hold the entire story of your life and still remain untouched. It can see the patterns and choose a new path. It can love the old self and still evolve beyond it. That's your power. That's your freedom. You can see clearly without hating what you see. You can remember where you came from without being trapped by it. You can forgive the world for shaping you and still reclaim the right to shape yourself now, because you are not here to repeat. You are here to wake up, to notice, to soften, to ask again and again, is this mine? Or was this given to me before I could decide? And the more you ask, the more you free yourself. You don't have to be who the world told you to be. You can be what's underneath it all. The quiet, knowing presence that sees the mask. The still, spacious being that was never conditioned. That self doesn't need approval. It doesn't need to perform. It just is. And when you rest in that awareness, you stop reacting. You start responding. You stop clinging to the identity. You start flowing from presence. You meet the world, not as a product of your past, but as the creator of your now. And from that place, anything is possible. You define yourself by memory. You say, this is who I am, and point to a story woven from what you remember. Moments, lessons, wounds, victories, all strung together into a narrative called you. But pause for a second. What is memory, really? Is it a reliable archive? A mental video file you can access at will? Or is it something far less stable, far more fluid? Neuroscience says memory isn't like pulling a file from a cabinet. It's not a clean retrieval. It's a reconstruction. A creative act. Every time you remember something, your brain doesn't fetch the memory, it rebuilds it, piece by piece, shaped by your current mood, your beliefs, your surroundings. You don't recall the past. You reimagine it. You color in the blanks. You fill in gaps with assumption. You change the edges without noticing. And every time you do this, the memory changes. Subtly, unconsciously, which means your most sacred memories, your defining moments, may not be as fixed as you think. They may have evolved over time, shifted in tone, detail, meaning. And yet, they still shape you, still define you, still anchor your sense of self. But how stable is that anchor, really? Think of a memory that shaped you. Something big, maybe painful, maybe beautiful. Now ask, is that memory the event itself, or your interpretation? And did that interpretation change over the years? Did you tell the story differently as you grew? Did your understanding deepen, soften, or harden, depending on what else life threw at you? If so, then who is the you that was shaped? Which version is real? Which telling is true? You see, the self you believe in is stitched together from these fluid stories. And yet, you treat them as fact, as law. You say, I'm this way because of that thing that happened. But what if that thing didn't happen the way you think? What if your mind edited it? What if your emotion painted it more dramatic than it was? What if your need for identity exaggerated the wound or softened the edge? And here's the deeper truth. Most of your memories aren't remembered directly. They're remembered through stories you've told yourself over and over, through photos you've seen, through other people's accounts, through emotions frozen in time and reactivated by triggers. So the question becomes, are you remembering the moment, or are you remembering your memory of the memory? It's dizzying, but it's freeing too, because if the past isn't fixed, then maybe your identity isn't either. Maybe the self you've built from memory is less a monument and more a mirage, not a lie, but not a solid truth either, just a current narrative. A version useful until it isn't. And here's where it gets even deeper. There are things you think you remember, but didn't experience. Stories you heard so often they became yours. Emotions you inherited from your parents, your lineage, your culture. Traumas passed down not just through behavior, but through nervous system patterns and unspoken rules. And these shape your sense of me. You believe they make you you. But do they? Or do they just build a character the mind can hold on to? Because the mind needs a story. It clings to continuity. It says, this is me. I began here. This happened. Then that. But awareness, it doesn't need continuity. It doesn't need memory to be itself. You've experienced this. Those brief moments before falling asleep. Right as you wake up. There's no story. No name. No past. Just presence. And in that space, You're still here, still aware, still alive. So if memory can disappear and awareness remains, then who are you? Are you the one who remembers, or the one who sees memory arise? Are you the story, or the field the story appears in? That's the shift. That's the freedom. Because if you're awareness, then memory doesn't define you. It informs you. It flavors experience. It gives context. But it doesn't limit who you are. It doesn't trap you in an identity made of old interpretations. It doesn't freeze you in a version you've outgrown. And once you see this, you stop worshipping memory. You stop using it as a measuring stick for who you're allowed to be. You start living not from the past, but from presence. You start asking, what's true now? What's alive now? What am I without the memory? Because without memory, you're not less. You're free. You're open. You're available to this moment, rather than reacting to a moment long gone. And, ironically, when you stop clinging to memory, it becomes clearer, more tender, more nuanced. Because now you're not using it as armor. You're meeting it with spaciousness. With presence you can feel old pain without becoming it. You can honor old joy without chasing it. You can see memory not as who I am, but as what I experienced. And that difference is everything. Because now you're not stuck. You're not frozen in a version of yourself. You're not repeating the past on autopilot. You're awake. You're here. You're choosing. And yes, memories still arise. They still visit. They still shape flavor and color. But they don't define you. You define them. You hold them gently. You say, yes, that happened. Or at least, I believe it did, and it mattered. But it's not all of me. You become larger than your past. Because you remember, the most essential part of you has no story. It's never been remembered, because it was never lost. It's the space memory arises in. And it's still here. Still whole. Still waiting for you to return, not to the past, but to now. Where nothing is missing. Where no story is needed. Where the self dissolves. And awareness remains. You change. You've always changed. Not just through the years, but moment to moment, space to space, person to person. You've noticed it. The way you speak differently around certain people. The way your posture adjusts. Your humor shifts. Your tone softens or hardens depending on who's in the room. With one person you feel open. With another, guarded. In one setting, you're the leader. In another, you shrink. And none of it is intentional. It just happens. Like water taking the shape of its container. Like a chameleon adapting to its environment. And maybe you've wondered, if I'm always shifting, who am I really? Is there a core self beneath all the roles? Or am I just a collection of masks, layered, rehearsed, and reactive? Am I authentic or just adaptive? It's not a simple question, because identity feels solid until you look at it. Then it starts to shimmer, like a mirage in heat, always moving, never quite graspable. You think you know yourself, but under pressure, or in love, or in fear, you become someone else. And that new version, it feels just as real, just as me. So which one is true? Are you the one who jokes too much to fill the silence? Are you the one who goes quiet to avoid conflict? Are you the one who stands tall in front of strangers, or the one who collapses in private? Are you the warrior, the artist, the planner? The answer might be yes, all of them. And none of them. Because here's the thing, you are not fixed. You are not a statue carved from certainty. You are fluid, responsive, alive. And your masks, those shifting faces you wear, aren't lies. They're strategies, responses, reflections of the space you're in. And in that way they make sense. They're part of your intelligence, your survival, your intuition. But they're not your core. They're not your essence, they're expressions, not definitions. The problem isn't that you wear masks. The problem is when you forget that they're masks. When you mistake them for the whole truth. When you cling to one identity so tightly that you suffer when it no longer fits. Or worse, when you think you have to stay the same, but you don't. You never did. Look back at your life. Have you always been this version? Has your personality, your worldview, your humor, your habits stayed static? Of course not. You've evolved. You've adapted. You've shifted in ways you'd even notice, and you'll keep doing that, because growth isn't optional. It's who you are. You are not a fixed point. You are a wave, and the beauty of a wave is that it moves, it expresses, it rises and falls, but it never stops being water. So maybe the question isn't, what's the real me? Maybe it's, what is always here, beneath every shift? Because if there's something consistent, something unmoved, it's not in your personality, it's not in your behavior, it's in your awareness. The part of you that watches the roles come and go, that feels the mask slip on and off and on again. That part, it doesn't change. It's the stage beneath the actors, the sky behind the clouds. And it's always been there, silent, still, untouched by the performance. You might not notice it in the noise, but in the quiet, it's unmistakable. It's the you that exists before you decide who to be, the presence that watches your life unfold. And that presence doesn't have a mask, it doesn't need one, because it doesn't need to be seen, it already sees. So when you start to feel fragmented, like you're being too many things for too many people, come back to that. Come back to the witness, not to escape the world, but to remember that you're more than your roles. You're not just the character in the play, you're also the light on the stage. And here's what happens when you live from that awareness. Your masks become tools, not prisons. You use them skillfully, you shift when needed, but you don't lose yourself in the shift. You play your roles, but you remember you're not the role. You become fluid without becoming false. Because authenticity isn't about staying the same, it's about staying connected to presence, to truth, to the silent knowing that exists beneath identity. And when you live from that space, you feel more like yourself, even when you're changing. You stop needing to prove who you are. You stop fearing who you're not. You start flowing with life, and others feel it. They feel the difference. They feel your groundedness, your depth, your soft. Because you're not clinging to a version of you, you're being, fully, freely, and paradoxically. When you're not trying to be authentic, you become the most real. Because you're not acting from ego. You're acting from awareness, from presence. And that's unshakable. That's the you that doesn't shift, no matter what room you walk into.